Okay, hearing, it looks like we have everybody on. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the top here to make sure. Yes. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners to order. This meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners is being held by teleconference. The date is Thursday, February 13th, 2025, and the time is 9:01 a.m. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, engagement, and enforcement in chiropractic care. Members of the public may address the board during the public comment session. Public comments will also be taken on agenda items at the time the item is heard and prior to the board taking any action on said items. Those who would like to provide public comment will be limited to 3 minutes unless in the discretion of the board, circumstances require a longer period. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their allotted time to other members of the public to make comments. Individuals may appear before the board to discuss items not on today's agenda. However, the board may not discuss or take action on these items except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded, and please turn off silence all cell phones, and we will now take roll. And Ms. Cruz, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Paris, this is Kristen. If you don't mind, can you have Dr. Adams take the role? We're getting Ms. Sweet over to our Sacramento meeting location, so she will be online with us in about 20 to 30 minutes. In the meantime, the board has a quorum, so you can go ahead and take roll and start the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Dr. Adams, would you please call the roll? You're on mute. There you go.
Yes, good morning, everyone. We'll take the roll now. Dr. Paris.
Present.
Dr. Adams, present. Jeanette Cruz is en route. Dr. Azzolino.
Present.
Dr. Daniels.
Present.
And Mr. Sweet.
Yes, present.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Moving to agenda item number 2, public comment for items not on the agenda. And again, a reminder that members of the public may address the board at this time, but please be advised identifying yourself is voluntary. And if you do identify yourself, your name will be recorded in the official minutes of the meeting if it's provided at the time of your comment. Moderator, can we please open this agenda item for public comment?
Absolutely. We are opening up for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button, so you may need to hit the ellipses button. That's the ... at the bottom there. People will be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 15-second warning before your time expires. And our first request is coming from MP. Hold on just a second. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone. All right, MP, looks like you unmuted and then you remuted. Let's try again. Hold on.
Hi there. Not sure if you hear this or not.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
Go ahead,
Perfect.
please.
Thank you. We just wanted to say thank you to the board for continuing to look at animal chiropractic legislation and the need for animal chiropractic for the constituents of California. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate the opportunity.
And that was our only request for public comment at the moment.
Okay. Can we please close agenda item number 2? And moving to agenda item number 3, Board Chair's report. Well, I would like to first and foremost acknowledge the significant and unprecedented impacts of the LA fires on our licensees and the general public, and really underscore the state's commitment to helping survivors and businesses recover. I would encourage licensees who have been impacted to contact the BCE office directly for information and assistance. And also, uh, the BCE has been sharing information and resources through our social media platforms. Second, I would like to welcome our new board member, Dr. Azolino. Welcome and welcome back. I'd like to congratulate Dr. Daniels on her reappointment to the board. Congratulations, Dr. Daniels. Happy to see you back. And finally, I'd like to thank our outgoing board member, Dr. Sandino, and really appreciative of her willingness to volunteer to serve on this board, and wish her the best moving forward. I really, first and foremost, want to thank the board members for your continued collaboration and engagement with stakeholders on BCE proposals, and also something that was very meaningful to me in over the last 3 years that you've allowed me to serve in this role, which I'm grateful for and appreciative. But that is the participation in our outreach opportunities. And so we've taken advantage of so many opportunities with our stakeholders, and we made concerted efforts to do outreach and to re-engage, and in areas like legislative days, conferences. We had a shared booth. We've found ways to collaborate with other stakeholders in the profession, at state association conferences. We've done presentations to students, and I know that includes many of the board members here. And so I just hope that we can continue that and continue to do that outreach. I don't, I'm sure maybe I share, we've also seen this reflected back to us with our stakeholders and the ability to, and the comfort to be able to just reach out to us and bring issues to our attention and bring concerns to our attention that we can then begin to address as a board. So I think this is very meaningful. Upcoming in that direct outreach that is, of course, we'll talk about later, the involvement with FCLB and MBCE, which I think is a tremendous opportunity moving forward for our board to again collaborate and integrate with our other board members across the U.S. We also have a upcoming Cal Cairo conference in March, and they've reached out and asked us to do ethics. So I'll be there in March doing that for them. And I encourage all of us to get more involved that way if you choose to do so. You know, my first year as chair was COVID, and it was kind of a ride, and everything was focused on COVID. And I think our stakeholders and licensees and all of us, the board staff and society as a whole, it was kind of a blur, just trying to keep up with COVID and manage all the issues that we never had in front of us before from that perspective. And then after a break there, I just want to thank you again for entrusting me the last 3 years as chair of this board. I think we can be proud as a team. I think we've worked together well. And I think when you look at the regulations that we moved forward, these were the really big pieces that were kind of on the board's agenda for a long time. And I think we made meaningful strides as a group and as a team to move these forward. And as we'll see in our executive officers report, many of those are going to 45-day comment periods, and some are still in the development stage. And I think that's as those conceptual proposals are nearly complete, and then in preparation for sunset review next year, I think it's really time for us to think about what's next. And so as I finish up what likely is my last term as chair on this board, I really hope that we can look forward and how can we continue, what's next for us? What are the next things that we can do to better serve, improve consumer protection, better serve the public and our licensees, and get back to, getting those back on our committee agendas and have really robust, meaningful committee discussions and uh, a full schedule of committee meetings again. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I just want to thank also the staff has been amazing for me and a wonderful partner for me, and I've always felt prepared, and I've always felt like I could lean on every every staff member at the BCE office. And I would also say that a special thank you to Kristen Walker, I owe a huge debt of gratitude for her assistance and her guidance and her meaningful, thoughtful processes. And as we've worked through a lot of issues and questions, and she really has become a reliable source of um, information for me. And so I've leaned on that quite a bit, and so thank you. It's really meant a lot to me. It's been very helpful, and I think I hope that you share how proud I am of what this board's accomplished in the last 3 years. And I can't thank you all enough. I try to on these calls. I try to do it individually, but I really can't share that enough. I feel like we have done a lot of great work over the last 3 years. So that concludes my chair report, and I'll take any questions from the board if there are any.
I just have a comment that I appreciate your leadership, your service, your mentorship as well, and I'm excited to continue working with you while we still have you, because you have so much to offer, so much institutional and experience and knowledge in these aspects. And so I thank you for your efforts and for your leadership, and I'm excited for what we have accomplished and what we have yet to accomplish in the coming months and years. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Adams.
And welcome, Dr. Azzolino, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you both.
Hearing no further comments there. Um, Moderator, can we please open agenda item number 3, board chairs report for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 3. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay, moving to agenda item number 4, elections of board officers for 2025. And I would, let me turn this over to our board legal counsel, Ms. Sabina Knight, to preside over the election process.
Good
Ms. Knight?
morning. I've been a little sick, so sorry if I have to keep coughing or drink my tea. As we know, we have our nominations from our October meeting, and we will proceed in order of those nominations and checking to make sure we don't have any other nominations. We'll start with chair. So we have Dr. Adams is nominated as chair. Do we have any other nominations at this time?
Miss Knight, I'm wondering if Miss Cruz has made it to her location, if we should be waiting on this item.
She hasn't. We can either do the nomination, we could do the other nominations where she's not nominated, and then we can see where she's at, and then we can always come back to this, or we can skip the whole item and come back to it all later.
I would like to give her the opportunity to be present. Is it okay if we, if there's no objection, and if the DCA, the Department of Consumer Affairs report, and Mr. Clifford is with us, if we can maybe go to that and then come back to this agenda item?
Absolutely, you can take any item out of order you wish. So if
Okay.
the next item is ready to go, Brian looks to be ready. So I say we go ahead and go there, and we'll check back in with Ms. Cruz's arrival.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me, I would have to check with Ms. Walker or the moderator to see if Mr. Clifford is here with us early and available to do that.
I'm here in the El Dorado room.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Do you mind going, do you mind if we jump to your agenda item?
Of course, no problem at all.
Okay, great. Please, please, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I'm Brian Clifford from the California Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Before I get started, I just wanted to congratulate the members on their recent appointments and also thank Dr. Sandino for her service to the board. On January 29th, 2025, Governor Newsom released Executive Order N-15-25, providing quick recovery relief for local businesses by deferring renewal fees and waiving other fees for DCA licensees in the Los Angeles wildfire areas. Specific DCA provisions include DCA licensees whose licenses expire between January 1st and July 1st, 2025 will be granted a one-year extension to pay their renewal fee if their business or residence address is in a certain zip code impacted by the fire. Licensees will still need to renew their license, but their fees will be postponed for 1 year. In addition, duplicate or replacement licenses or wall certificates will be provided free of charge until January 7th, 2026. And delinquency fees are suspended until July 1st, 2025 for those in the impacted areas. DCA met with Board and Bureau leadership on January 29th after the executive order was released by the governor and discussed it in its implementation. DCA has been providing messaging to the boards and bureaus for dissemination to the impacted licensees, as well as consistent messaging for use on all board and bureau websites. Additionally, we asked the boards and bureaus to share the executive order and fee deferral opportunity with stakeholders. We want to ensure this information is shared with as many people as possible. In addition, DCA has a specific disaster help center webpage that includes information on the executive order, FAQs, and other important resources that may be helpful as our licensees and survivors navigate the rebuilding process. DCA also has a dedicated toll-free number, 1-800-799-8314, and email cafires@dca.ca.gov, available for fire survivors needing assistance. Each DCA board and bureau website has been updated with information for individuals impacted by the fires. In addition, DCA's Office of Information Services, DCA's IT team, has developed landing pages for all online databases so that for those going through the renewal process will receive information regarding the fee deferral when they go to renew their license online. DCA has also provided each board and bureau a list of the impacted licensees based on their provided zip codes and is encouraging boards and bureaus to reach out to these licensees directly to inform them of the executive order and the relief available. We are grateful to the governor for this opportunity to assist our licensees in this time of unprecedented need. A special thank you to DCA Board and Bureau leadership for their continued partnership and commitment to helping survivors. Governor Newsom released his proposed 2025-26 state budget on January 10th, which includes 8 budget change proposals for DCA's boards and bureaus. Additionally, DCA's vacancy reduction and government efficiency plans were approved by the Department of Finance and made official in the spring revisions. The governor remains committed to funding resources to address California's housing and homelessness crisis. Included in the governor's proposed budget is the creation of a dedicated California Housing and Homelessness Agency. DCA and other regulators currently under the Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency would form a consumer protection agency. This is an extraordinary opportunity for DCA to better align with other consumer protection entities as one consumer protection agency. With a consumer protection agency secretary within the governor's cabinet, this is an exciting opportunity that will only strengthen our mission, momentum, and delivery of services to California. The governor's reorganization proposal will be reviewed by the nonpartisan Little Hoover Commission and the legislature in the spring. As more information is available, DCA will continue to keep Board and Bureau leadership updated. The governor signed AB 1170 in 2024, which requires board members to now file their Form 700s electronically with the Fair Political Practices Commission using its electronic filing system. Effective January 1st, 2025, DCA board members must file Form 700s through this online system. Filings will no longer be filed via the NetFile portal that DCA board members have been using for many years. Additionally, paper filings will not be accepted. The FPPC emailed all board members on January 2nd, 2025 with a link to the FPPC portal and with login information. As a reminder, the annual Form 700 filing deadline is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. And if you have any questions, please reach out to DCA's Board and Bureau Relations. DCA is inviting presidents and vice presidents to attend our annual President's Training on February 19th next week from 10 to 12:30. This virtual training is for board members who are new to the role of president or vice president or who have served in the role for a year or more. The training will review the role of a president, communication best practices with the executive officer and board members, as well as the president's administrative duties. It also includes a panel of prior board members who will share their knowledge and expertise and answer questions from attendees. Learning from each other is a large part of this training, and we look forward to seeing all presidents and vice presidents there. Please register online using DCA's learning management system. Save the date. Board member orientation training must be completed within 1 year of appointment or reappointment to the board. BMOT is an all-day virtual training that DCA will offer on March 26th, January 18th, and October 22nd this year. Please register for the first available date to be compliant. Board members can register for BMOT again using DCA's learning management system. And finally, I wanted to provide an update regarding DCA Board and Bureau Relations team. Yvonne Durantes served as the Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations since October 2022. On December 6th last year, the governor appointed Yvonne as the Assistant Deputy Director of Legislative and Government Affairs at the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Her last day at DCA was December 31st. We appreciate her dedication to the Board and Bureau Relations team and wish her well in her new role. And with that, I appreciate your time and welcome any questions from the board.
Let me open it up to the board members. Are there any questions? Any questions for Mr. Clifford? Okay. Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Clifford. Appreciate that update and report. I'm going to, moderator, can we open up agenda item number 5, the Department of Consumer Affairs report for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 5. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. And if we can we circle back to agenda item number 4 in the elections? I would just check with to see if We have Miss Cruz.
Chair Paris, I believe we have
Yes.
an ETA of about 9:30.
Okay. Um, okay, let's go to hearing, if there's no objection from anyone on the board, let's go to agenda item number 6. We'll give her a couple minutes to settle in when she gets there too. I'm sure she's at a furious pace right now. Um, and so agenda item number 6, review and possible approval of board meeting minutes. And again, we are looking at meeting minutes for July 20th, 2023, October 19th, 2023, January 12th, 2024, May 23rd, 24th, 2024, and October 24th, 2024 meeting minutes. And let me open this agenda item for questions or discussion by the board.
I motion that we, sorry, there's a hand up.
Thank you, board members. For this, for the meeting minutes, we have them prepared, but we just due to the kind of short time frame of when we release these materials, there's about 80+ pages of meeting minutes that need to be reviewed and approved. So what our plan is for staff is next week we're going to be releasing our petition hearing packets for our upcoming meeting in April. We will include these draft minutes with those materials out to the members. And then we're also going to get these minutes posted up on our website for that April meeting so the public can begin reviewing them. So no motion requested here today. We'll make that motion in April, but we'll get them up for what's going to be about a 60-day review timeframe before they're considered in April.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Any other discussion or questions from the board? Okay, thanks. Hearing none. Moderator, can we please open this agenda item for public comment?
We are open for public comment once again. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please, we can close the public comment. Let me see. It looks like we can, is Ms. Cruz available or can we continue on? I'm checking with the room.
Dr. Paris, I think she was
Miss
parking. So
Okay, if no objection, let's continue on then. Let's go to agenda item number 7, please. Review and possible ratification of approved Doctor of Chiropractic license applications. And I will open this agenda item for questions or discussions by the board.
Motion to approve chiropractic license applications.
I second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion by the board? Okay. Hearing no discussion, moderator, can we please open agenda item number 7 for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Dr. Paris, would you like me to call the roll?
think you're
You might have
still
to.
Dr. Paris.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Dr. Adams, please, will you call the roll?
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Dr. Adams, yes. Jeanette Cruz is not present. So Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
and Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Okay, moderator, if we could move to agenda item number 8, review and possible ratification of approved continuing education provider applications. Let me open this up for questions or discussions by the board.
I move that we ratify the applications for the continuing education providers.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Any further discussion or comments by the board? Okay, hearing none. Moderator, would you please open agenda item number 8 for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 8. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... and cycle through the 3 different pages in order to find your hand. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. And let me circle back and see if Ms. Cruz is available.
I'm here. You see me, hear me?
Yes, they're focusing in on you right now on the
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Cruz.
Thank you everyone for your patience. I didn't realize kind of it had set a documentation went out saying that I would be here today versus remote. So thank you everyone for your patience.
No problem. Thank you for being on site too. Appreciate it. Okay, let's moderator, if we could please circle back to agenda item number 4.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
can I suggest that we complete the
Oh, sorry.
vote for
Yes.
the agenda item and then circle back?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good suggestion. Ms. Cruz, would you please call the roll for the vote on the motion for agenda item 8?
For agenda item 8, Dr. Harris,
Yes.
Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet,
Yes.
right? Motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. And thank you, Dr. Adams. I was ahead of myself. Okay. Agenda item 4, please. Election of board officers for 2025, and I will turn this over to Ms. Sabina Knight to preside over the election.
Actually, before we do that, would you mind if we took roll again and included everybody's location now that Ms. Cruz is present at the DCA location? Can we do that real quick? I think we left off our location information when we took our original roll.
Okay.
And when we do that, do we need to address if there's anyone from the public in the room, kind of in this initial kind of roll call, so we don't have to do it later on?
Yes, that would be great. And then and after this particular roll call, if any public members do show up, just please indicate so we can then ask for public comment on each location if needed.
Okay, thank you. All right, so retaking roll call, Dr. Paris,
I was a yes, present at 3455 Knighton Road, Reading, California, 96002, and no members of the public present.
Thank you. Dr. Adams?
Present at Adams Chiropractic Offices, 101 Andrick Street, Sonoma, California. There are no public members present.
Ms. Cruz, present, 1625 North Market Boulevard, Suite N22, 220, El Dorado Room, Sacramento, California, 95834. Dr. Azalino?
I am also present at
And no
Adams
members of the public
Chiropractic.
present. Sorry about that.
Dr. Aslino's present, Adams Chiropractic, also 101 Andrix Street, Sonoma, 95476.
Great. Thank you so much. Dr. Daniels?
Present, 1165 Park Avenue, San Jose, California, 95126, and no members of the public are present.
Thank you. And Mr. Sweet?
Yes, I'm present at 4100 West Alameda Avenue, third floor, Burbank, California, 91505, and there are no members of the public present.
All right, thank you. All right, got
Thank
everyone.
you, Ms. Cruz. Thank you. And now we're back to agenda item number 4. And I will turn this over to Ms. Knight to preside over the elections.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad we're able to address that and get that on the record. So we're back to our election of officers, which, as we all recall, in October 2024, we nominated members for each position, which we have chair, vice chair, and secretary. So we're going to take them in order. And we'll do chair. So we have Dr. Adams was nominated in October. Do I have any additional nominations currently? And hearing none, then obviously back then we already established Dr. Adams would accept the position should he be elected. I'm assuming that hasn't changed, Dr. Adams.
That has not changed. Thank you.
Great. And did you want to make a statement before I did our officialness, if you will?
I'm honored that I've had this nomination, and I look forward to serving. I think we've done some phenomenal things in the last 3 to 4 years, and I'm looking forward to continuing that momentum and doing more and accomplishing more. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I can't recall because this board does it differently. Because we had nominations already. Do we do another motion here or not? I can't recall. Usually I have all my boards do motions, but this board's a little different. Do you recall, Dr. Paris? You're muted.
I believe we did.
Yeah, I thought we did too, but this is the only board that does this previous nomination thing, so I'm always a little thrown off by it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm looking for since we have a nomination already, let's do an official motion for Dr. Adams as chair.
Motion to approve Dr. Adams as chair of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners.
Dr. Aslino will second that.
Thank you so much. And if there's no other board discussion, we'll go up for public comment on this motion for Dr. Adams as chair.
We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. All right, so we have a motion and a second for Dr. Adams for chair. Let's do our roll call vote. And, or did you want me to, Ms. Cruz?
I can
You
do
all
it.
right?
That's fine.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Dr. Paris? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Azzolino?
Yes.
Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
And Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
All right, motion passed.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Thank you.
Dr. Paris is applauding. So that takes us to vice chair. And in October, we have nomination of Dr. Daniels. And I'm assuming, Dr. Daniels, you'll still accept that position if elected?
Yes.
Great. And do we have any further nominations? Okay, if I can entertain a motion for Dr. Daniels as vice chair.
Motion to approve Dr. Daniels as vice chair of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners.
Dr.
I'll
Adams,
second.
second that.
Cruz? Oh, that's good.
Go ahead.
They were fighting over the second on that one, Dr.
I know,
Daniels.
go ahead and give it to Dr. Adams. He's first. Yeah.
If no more discussion, let's go up for public comment on this motion.
We are open for public comment on this motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Dr. Paris, are you want to see this this agenda item through, or do you want me to take it from here?
I will gladly, happily, wholeheartedly turn the gavel over to you for the rest of this meeting, Dr. Adams. And thank you. Congratulations.
That's why
Thank
he was
you.
applauding. That's why he was applauding. All right, so let's call the vote for Dr. Daniels as vice chair.
Thank you. Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Azzolino?
Yes.
Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
And Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
All right, motion passed.
Congratulations.
Yay.
So our last officer is secretary. In October, we nominated Ms. Cruz for secretary. And Ms. Cruz, I'm assuming you will still happily accept the position?
Yes.
Excellent. Do I have any other nominations for secretary? If not, I would entertain a motion for Ms. Cruz to be for the board secretary.
I nominate Ms. Cruz for board secretary.
I second.
Excellent. All right, let's go up for public comment on this motion.
Was there a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Paris.
Dr. Paris,
Okay.
second.
Oh, we didn't hear it. Sorry.
All right, we are open for public comment on 4C as in Charlie. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. All right, so we have a motion and a second for Ms. Cruz as secretary, and all that's left is to call the vote.
All right, Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Azzolino?
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Congratulations.
If,
Yay.
Congratulations.
if it's okay, Dr. Adams, may I make a small request that we circle back and give our incoming vice chair and secretary an opportunity to make a statement should they choose?
I agree wholeheartedly. Dr. Daniels.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to say that as some of you know, that I really considered, applying for reappointment. And part of my decision really is because of this group. I think we've worked really hard the last 3 years and I feel like we're finally getting some traction and cleanup and some momentum. And so I just really appreciate this group for just really working together. We don't always agree, which I think is great. But I think this group handles it very respectfully, and we cooperate very well, even from small things of scheduling our meetings. We all give and take. And I've seen each person just give their all and work on all of these regulatory packages that, we've been working so hard on. And so I feel like we're finally kind of getting our feet, and, it hasn't been perfect. And there's one thing that, kind of sticks in my head that, I think some of us are unhappy with, but, I think we might have a correction for that. So I just wanted to say that I think I'm very grateful for this group and how we've come together and worked really hard. So I look forward to continuing that in a just productive and respectful way. So I'm honored and thank you very much.
Thank you. I
Thank
totally
you.
agree. Ms. Cruz.
Well, I want to thank kind of just to the trust in my peers on the board to kind of continue to kind of place me in this position. I completely agree with Dr. Daniels about, I would say, the way the group itself, the way we come together, the way we discuss, the way we even at times disagree, but we disagree so respectfully. And I think at the end of the day, what we try to get to is really what's best for the California consumers, but also I would say kind of the current state and future of the profession itself. And even as a public member, right, not being in the profession itself, being able to have a say and kind of provide the insights I have from my own personal experiences, I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. We're lucky to have you and Mr. Sweet as our public members, and we look forward to continuing to have you and your support and input and your expertise. So thank you for your service as well, Mr. Sweet. Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item 9. And we will welcome the EBAS Business Development Manager, Bradley Guyve, and for his presentation to the board. Welcome.
This is the moderator. We've added Bradley Guy. If you're available, will you please unmute?
I am unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Welcome, yes. Go ahead, please.
We can hear you. Welcome.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity and excited to talk to you guys today about EBOS, especially somebody that has used EBOS in the past. So looking forward to kind of running through just new case studies that we've been able to do, some new studies, the benefits of EBOS, and then hopefully circle back and provide any clarification if there is any confusion throughout. So again, thank you very much. You'll see the presentation on the screen. So I'll just go ahead and manually tell to go to the next slide. So EBOS has been around for just over 20 years. We have over 150 clients, both in the healthcare and non-healthcare regulatory boards that have trusted EBOS as part of their way to measure their moral or their licensee's moral and ethical compass. So we're obviously in chiropractic. That's where we started. We are also in many other nurses and many other healthcare fields, including nursing, counseling, massage therapy, as well as non-healthcare land surveyors, architects, things like that. So ethics violations are going to happen anywhere and everywhere around us, whether we like to admit it or not. We do share the same sentiment that you guys have. We are trying to ultimately protect the public through the use of the EBOS exam, which we feel has a profound impact in doing so. I'd like to just first start with identifying what the problem is and why we're here to talk through and how EBOS can help you as a board. I like to start with some statistics. 1 in 4 have personally seen or been involved in unethical behavior nationwide. This is a California specific stat, but it is one that I think is pretty profound. Over a 4-year time period from 2017 to 2021, over 22,000 adverse ethical actions were reported in chiropractic, nursing, doctorate, counsel, and radiology technician. And that's just in the state of California. Obviously, California is very large, but it just kind of shows you the tip of the iceberg and really the gauntlet that we have in front of us when dealing with these types of cases. Unfortunately, nearly 60% of all misconduct observed in the workplace of unethical behavior is actually never reported. So this is something where that you guys, when you see ethical violations come in front of the board, it's probably just the few that have stood out. And there's so many more out there where ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect the public. We're trying to ensure that a licensee that comes in front of the board ultimately never has that same issue come up again. Recidivism is huge and it's very hard to measure, but we feel with the implementation of a product like EBOS that it does incredibly help. And we do have some statistics that I'll get into in a little bit. At the end of the day, we do stand as the gold standard in remediation ethics essay assessments. I'll take a deeper dive into actually what the intricacies and nuances of the EBOS exam are. If you go to the next slide, it'll give you an overview of our 5 assessment areas: fraud, boundaries, substance abuse, unprofessional conduct, and professional standards. Keep in mind that the EBOS exam is all scenario based. I'll get into a rubric in a couple of more slides, but it is important to point out this is not going to be your typical, Tom stole groceries from the store, how does he handle it? These are all professional related ethics scenarios. All of our scenarios, which you saw in the previous slide, over 600 of them are from prior board orders. So these are real life applications that have and scenarios that have come in front of the boards. You'll see some examples of our questions later on, but these aren't going to be your basic questions. These are multi-layered and multifaceted ethical violation scenarios, and quite candidly, ones that you'll see commonly come in front of you as the board. If you go to the next slide, you can see, I just want to touch on the critical thinking aspect of EBOS, because ultimately that's what a licensee is going to use when they answer the question. You as a board will get a snapshot of the participants' critical thinking. It also enforces the licensee to promote sound decision-making, judging by how they're going to answer the question. And I'll dive into that a little bit deeper in the rubric setting. Critical thinking at the end of the day plays a large role because it ultimately determines whether something is right or wrong in a professional workplace. If you go to the next slide, you'll see just some examples of possible ethics violations that we see within the domains. When you see me refer to domains, think of subjects, so boundaries, unprofessional conduct, so forth and so on. On average, we like to recommend 3 to 5 essays per licensee when they get assigned, depending on the actual ethical offense, obviously. It is important to point out that the more essays that are assigned to a licensee, the better you are able to capture their ethical and moral compass. So this isn't an all-inclusive list. This is just more or less to provide you an example of what we see and where these can be placed. You as a board, we're here as your resource, so we want you guys to reach out. If you have an instance come in front of the board and you're not sure which domains to assign, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help, and we're happy to get even our psychometrician involved that can provide the data behind the why of these domains. If you go to our next slide, it'll give an overview of how this process works. So think of EBOS, and a lot of people will say, okay, where's the place of EBOS in a board order? And it's important to point out from that standpoint that we've done some case studies recently with a client of ours that had an ethics webinar, and they used that as part of their post-disciplinary process and remediation strategy. and they had a 30-minute ethics webinar where they gave their licensees. And on average, due to AI scans and facial recognition, the average amount of time that a licensee paid attention in the ethics webinar was 6% of the time. And quite frankly, it's not too surprising. I think we're all guilty of that, right? We all hit the arrows. We've all tried to move through an ethics webinar or even a standard webinar just to try to get through it. But that's really where the eBOS exam stands on its own 2 feet, and the pillars are sound of the product, is that you're able to ensure that they're the ones taking the exam. B, that judging by how they respond, it gives you an accurate measurement of their ethical and moral compass. And it's not, you're not being presented a certificate where at the end of the day, you just say, okay, that they're fixed and they're ethically sound and they can return to practice. Obviously, we're an independent method, so there's benefits there as well. So you as a board would order the exam. You'd select, obviously, the number of exams to assign to the candidate and which domains. The licensee would then register for the exams. I do want to be clear, there is no cost to you as the board to use the product. The cost is burdened by the licensee, which is $400 per exam. That is not for all exams, that is per domain, just for clarity's sake. The licensee would then go to the closest Prometric testing center in California to take the eBOS exam. It is a proctored exam done on a computer. So we are able to ensure the security of that exam by ensuring they're the ones taking it, and obviously not using alternative tools to provide answers. Results are sent to you as the board within 7 to 10 business days. They are sent to the licensee and the board. So you aren't chasing results. You as a board designate a contact, which you probably are all aware of, and then you get sent those results as well. If you go to the next slide, I just want to go into the subjectivity of grading, who's on our grader panel, the cost as I talked through. So we do have a grading panel of where all do have regulatory experience. So all come from either a lawyer or in board staff or currently on a board. So we do go through calibration exercises with our psychometrician as well, who's on staff. That is done on an annual basis to ensure consistency among the graders as obviously the human component. The subjectivity side of this is that there's currently 5 graders that grade the exam, with the averages being, with the average of all the graders being produced a score, and that's determining ultimately what's going to pass and fail an exam. I'll get into the rubric on the next slide. I talked about the cost, just want to reiterate, no cost to you to see the results or to assign the exam. The licensee does pay for that exam. If you go to our next slide, this is just an overview of our testing rubric. Some quick math, you can see the rows going across 1 to 4 and columns going down. Those are actually the 4 unique sections, which you'll see in our sample questions on the next slide. The maximum you can score is a 16, with 12 being a passing score. This is actually posted on our website. We do want to ensure fairness and transparency with the licensee being able to see the rubric and understand how the exam is graded. It is important to point out that the content is significantly higher weighted than spelling and grammar, for example. So being that it is done on a computer, handwriting obviously isn't in play, but the content is really what's going to trigger the score for the licensee. If you go to the next slide, this is just a simple sample eBOS scenario, an example. It goes back to my original point of how they're multi-layered. I won't read it verbatim. I think each of you can do that. But you can see the multiple aspect ethical violation here, where we're really asking the licensee to use their critical thinking, decision-making, providing some sound understanding in their answers. So you can see the 4 sections that mirror the rubric that you saw on the previous slide, starting with an introductory opinion statement, and asking them to give several statements about the ethical issues in play here. I'm making sure that they can identify what the ethical violations were. Some consequences and solutions, those are pretty self-explanatory. But what this does is it ultimately makes the licensee, as all of our scenarios are closely aligned with the actual offense of the licensee that came in front of the board and the violation that they incurred. So what it does is it actually forces the licensee to take a step back and look at it through their own lens and look at the consequences and solutions of, of how they can incorporate these into their own situation. We had a client that issued a survey to their licensees after remediation strategies, and over 80% of their licensees mentioned EBOS as having the most profound impact as part of the remediation strategy compared to everything that they did. So, and that was interesting as I reached out to a couple of the licensees just to get some more feedback. And they simply said, you know, I knew what I did was wrong. I never knew or how to get the help. And I never knew the ultimate minor and major stakeholders that were in play. I mean, obviously, I thought the person that I was involved with, you know, they're obviously a major stakeholder. I didn't know the trickle down effects of who actually this affected, whether they would be the minor stakeholders. The solutions and consequences, I think, also do that, as they're able to identify consequences of their actions. And so they're able to understand, you know, why the consequences come in play, whether that's the revocation of a board license or whether that's the suspension, even the personal consequences that could be associated with that as well. And lastly, as you can see here, solutions, licensees are forced to provide several solutions to the situation of, if they were given the key to the situation, how would they fix this? And so, you know, they're forced to come up with examples such as implementing post surveys or client satisfaction surveys, or even cameras. If it's fraud based, you know, incorporating lockers, for example. So we really make them use their critical thinking, which in my opinion is absolutely vital in this process. And it forces the licensee to really understand what they did, A, and B, how they can fix the situation. Our next slide is simply another scenario just for your information, and we'll go ahead to the following slide. So I'd just like to, as we close this out, how does EBOS help you as a board? It ultimately does provide a thorough review and report of the candidate's ethics and moral compass. We've talked about that in the decision making and also the critical thinking. But more importantly, it does provide you as a regulatory board an independent method to measure ethics, instead of a ethics webinar where they give you a certificate and you're unsure of next steps, for example. We have incorporated ethics live workshops as part of our offering. So in the event somebody fails an EBOS exam, which does happen probably more than you realize, instead of just having them consistently retake and having that cyclical period where they don't really learn anything, we have introduced a live workshop of an ethics case study, among other topics. We currently have about 10 topics, anything from sexual harassment to boundaries, to fraud, to personal identification, license renewal, things like that. So that is also an option that I also like to identify as we continue to expand upon our product offering. Ultimately, it does not give you, the regulatory board, confusion on the thoroughness of the required ethics task. We do the assessment. We give you the score analysis and a breakdown of that report so that you are clear in the inefficiencies and the proficiencies of the licensee's response. So as we go to the last slide, again, I know I sped through it. I really appreciate your time. I hope that helped clear and answer some questions. And if you have any questions, happy to answer those as well. But again, thank you for your support and thank you for your collaboration with using EBOS.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Guy. Is it Dr. Guy or Mr. Guy? I don't want to insult you.
It is Mr. Guy, so you can.
Okay.
I will not take the level of doctor.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. We'll open it to the board for some discussion or any comments you might have for Mr. Guy. Thank you.
I have a comment question, Mr. Guy. Thank you for the presentation. And I just wanted to say, I personally am glad you guys are there, because when we're doing enforcement, I feel I'm happy that we have a resource for, sort of re-education. And also, it's nice to hear that we can reach out to better pick the domains. I mean, I feel like we understand the domains, but having that as a resource is helpful. And I think you sort of answered one of my questions. One was, what is the process when they fail? And do you have metrics on how many times people are sort of failing retaking? Are there certain categories? And I like the fact that you have the ethics, the live workshops, because for everything, I think the only way we learn is we have to know what we've done wrong and then, get that feedback. So Will you be offering more of those? Are they sufficient? And then kind of what are the metrics on the fail and the retake?
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much for the question. So our pass rate, which shouldn't be too surprising, it should provide some substance behind it. In a standard education setting, it's a typical bell curve. You're going to have your low performers, you're going to have your mid performers and high performers, elite performers. So it's going to be usually a standard bell curve. People that take the EBOS exam, you can take the EBOS exam as a self take, so just electing to take it yourself. I'd probably say 90% of our people that take the exam are through a board order due to an ethical violation. So our pass rate is actually 58%, which identifies and highlights a few things. One is it's not necessarily just a check the box assessment. It is an assessment that truly measures somebody's ethics. And I think what we identified is there was not necessarily a next step of if somebody fails, okay, what's next? You as a board are almost put back as square one and you don't really know what to do. We do have boards that require people to pass no matter how many times that takes. So that is a possibility. The live workshop that we do is, I think, a great tool from a couple of ways. One is it's about a 75-minute workshop where it's a one-on-one opportunity with our practitioner afterwards, that you as a board get a full written analysis and report of the behaviors, interactions, questions that were asked from the licensee, their input of the licensees, behaviors, etc. So usually what we see, it's not, don't think of it as a way to study if somebody has failed. Think of it as a learning opportunity is what I call. People, I think, once they go through the workshop and the live in-person workshop, I would say are more likely to pass just because they understand the full breakdown and trickle-down effect of ethics cases, because it's truly what they talk about for close to an hour and a half. So we've seen tremendous amount of success with it from a board perspective because it gives you guys a next step in the event someone does fail. It gives you a full report from the practitioner. Also, what it does is it usually enlightens the licensee. They can have a victim mentality where they say, this is ridiculous. I can't believe I have to take this. And usually after the workshop, a lot of their agitations or uneasiness are smoothed out just by the way of it's a one-on-one interaction. It's very conversational. So we do see that pass rate significantly increase after taking that workshop, and we almost use it as a remediation path of our own. So we've found, again, tremendous success with it. I'm happy to pass along the titles and subject matters of those workshops to you as a board so that you guys can use those. And we just finished our pilot with a client that had tremendous success with it, and licensees really enjoyed it because they felt like it was almost like an open forum where they were able to talk through their own issue. It was almost a counseling session of some sort, but it was also directly correlated to the ethics violation or sexual harassment, for example. So it really, in my opinion, a really great tool and asset that when paired in the right situation with an EBOS exam can be a really powerful asset to a board.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one follow-up. So yeah, could we get access to those live workshops? I mean, I would appreciate that. And then can the licensee take the live workshop before taking the test, or is it only after they fail that they then can take the live workshop?
Yeah, great question. So that is up to you guys as a board. You can determine if you want them to take it beforehand. I will say if somebody does pass, it can be repetitive. So we do see it happen on the front end on more of a proactive basis so that people feel like they have the course, especially when dealing with chiropractors who have been in school for so long. They're so used to studying for something. So for us, it's a common question to say, hey, do you guys have a study guide for the EBOS exam? And obviously we don't, right? We're not going to give you a study guide on how to pass an ethics exam. But so that's where we see the implementation of the workshop on the proactive side of the exam really smooth in well and transition well into taking the exam. So I can follow up with Kristen with an email with further information. And then Kristen, if you don't mind supplying that to the board, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I do have a question. I'm sorry, Mike, I have an auto light that just went out on me there. Um, Mr. Guy, in our outreach, oftentimes we're doing ethics presentations to the field DCs and also to students. And one thing that really they seem to enjoy is walking through violations and not just the processes and what would go on from board enforcement, but really kind of covering the ideas behind ethics and ethical decision making, and sometimes even like critical thinking in that area. And so I'm wondering if EBOS has collaborated with the field in any way to get this out, to get some of that process started well in advance of us needing you.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's an interesting one because it's the elephant in the room, but it's how do you tackle the elephant, right? Where do you start? I think is the key. And I talk to a lot of medical professionals that take the EBOS exam, and their first thing is, we have an ethics component to usually jurisprudence, or there might be an ethics course in college, but we think of ethics as, don't have an inappropriate relationship with a patient. There's so much more that goes beyond ethics that I think it's such a hard puzzle to tackle, because where do you start? I've reached out to some of the chiropractic schools to at least introduce the idea of and I'd almost rather it see, instead of the EBOS exam, just the idea of the critical decision making, and really getting them to understand the impact. Maybe it's even giving them some questions to take as part of their education curriculum. I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I don't have a solution right now. It is something that, as we continue to grow and more boards use it, to me, it's very reactive. To your point, it's very much implemented usually after a post-disciplinary measure. It's never on the proactive side, where we're trying to help people in advance to protect them from these scenarios even happening. So a long road ahead. That's a long-winded answer, but we are trying to work with schools. We are trying to work with even going to conferences and speaking to chiropractors about ethics. It's interesting when you talk to medical professionals and you say, let's talk about ethics, usually a wall goes right up and they say, oh no, I'm good. I'm ethically sound and I don't need any help. So we do have a ways to go, but looking at all creative ways that we can get EBOS, and not just EBOS, but ethics incorporated on the education setting, so that licensees and practitioners feel like they're better prepared when they go out in the field.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I work in a system where we have a preventive ethics group, and a lot of times when people hear that, it's it's hard to conceptualize what preventive ethics might be, but it really is that critical thinking and just taking that look around and kind of considering what might present those ethical challenges. And so I really do think our students, our chiropractic colleges and our students would really entertain, just in the same way they like us to come and give presentations. They're kind of always looking for that extra material or another voice. So I appreciate your comments there.
Yeah, one last comment as a follow-up. We have talked to some states about incorporating EBOS almost as like a random assessment with a certain number of licensees, and on the front end when they apply to get their license. And we've had some progress there. The issue, not necessarily an issue, but all of our scenarios are usually ethics violations based, and so it's hard to. We certainly don't want to put somebody and make them feel like they're guilty before they even take the exam. And then the other side of that is if they fail and they're going in front of a board, It's with a license application. How does that get affected? Arguably, it's probably a good thing because you're catching it on the front end before a problem actually occurs. So we've had some pretty strategic conversations with a number of states and a number of boards, even outside of chiropractic, about maybe incorporating a general ethics exam that's more multiple choice in nature. The benefit of the EBOS exam is that critical thinking aspect and the essay side of it, though, and so it's interesting, and it's a puzzle of how do you incorporate it into the front end to be proactive to accomplish that goal as well.
Yeah, so let me, without taking too much time,
Yeah.
but I appreciate your response there. One thing that we've talked about in the past is providing some of the more CE that the board might consider very meaningful in the interest of public protection. And so maybe there's room for some, and our kind of the obstacles has somewhat been just building out that work product on our end. And it seems like you all might make really good partners for us to see if there's some opportunity to collaborate where we can provide that CE under our mandated ethics to our providers through our platforms that maybe is content that we collaborate on together. And maybe that's the preventive, and we can, of course, we can look to attract the willing, and we can look to attract the low-hanging fruit at first, and and then and kind of move it from there. But yeah, so I hope maybe we can continue that conversation down the road. I think it could be something useful for us as a board, and bring us closer together in a collaborative way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to have the discussion. If there is interest to go down that road, we're happy to explore it, and I think it'd be very valuable to at least to look into.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Excellent comments. That's a nice idea you brought up there, Dr. Paris. I think that's something that we should definitely look into. I think that would be a good collaboration. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Guy. We appreciate your being here and being willing to take questions, and we look forward to getting in touch with you and doing perhaps some things together that might benefit our stakeholders and our prospective licensees in California. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. And one final comment, I just wanted to recognize Dr. Paris for his achievement award with ACA recently. Dr. Oots passed along his best wishes, so I just wanted to say congratulations.
Tell him thank you, and thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator, if we can open it up for public comment on agenda item number 9. Thank you, please.
We are open for public comment on the presentation for agenda item 9. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 10, we will give our time now to our Executive Officer, Kristen Walker, for her Executive Officer report. Ms. Walker.
Dr. Adams, and I apologize as well for my voice. It's still a bit raspy, so bear with me while I deliver my update this morning. So I'm going to begin with just some updates on our administration program. So the first update I have to share is that our next board meeting is going to be held on April 17th and 18th. We're planning for that meeting to be in person, not virtual via WebEx. And that meeting would be at Life Chiropractic College West in Hayward, with the plan of having regular business occur on that Thursday, April 17th, and then petition hearings on that following Friday, the 18th. I'll work with Dr. Adams a bit further on some of the details on that meeting, and then we'll also see if we can work with the school on potentially some sort of outreach activities while we're there on campus. As Brian Clifford updated the board during his update, As you're aware, on January 29th, Governor Newsom had issued an executive order postponing for 1 year license renewal fees for licensees whose licenses expire between January and June of this year and who have a residential or business address in one of 13 affected zip codes. DCA has done an excellent job in getting us an IT solution to be able to implement that. So it's already in place. We've applied it to any of the licensees who that we know of that have an address with us that was in one of the affected zip codes. Any other licensees out there that may potentially qualify for this, but we didn't have the data on file. For example, maybe their address of record is a practice address, but their residence was affected. We're encouraging them to reach out to the board staff directly so we can assist them. That same executive order also suspends replacement license fees for impacted licensees through January 7th of 2026, and it also suspends delinquency fees for the renewal of a license until July 1st of 2025. DCA assisted us with some resources that we were able to share with our stakeholders. We distributed them through our email blast. We've got some information there linking to the DCA resources page from our website. And then we've also been sharing quite a bit of material related to the various resources available for LA fire survivors on our social media channels. I did want to take a brief moment to also highlight some of our recent outreach efforts. So beginning in January, we really worked hard to reestablish BCE's social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Actually, even happy to report that we were able to get our X account basically verified. So we've got the gray check mark as a government entity, which is very helpful. It makes it easier for consumers and licensees to know they can trust that the information they're receiving is coming from a legitimate government organization. Those accounts have been rather dormant for a while. So we began by starting to share information and resources from a lot of our trusted state agency partners. We shared a few updates as far as with the reappointments to the board, and then also the LA Fire Relief and our meeting here today. We're continuing to work with DCA's communication division on developing some additional content that we can use and supplement on our social media channels. So a lot of exciting things going on there. We've built that up, and we're going to continue to keep that momentum going in the coming months. We also, so Tammy Pitto and I also recently participated in a DCA career fair on January 29th. That was a pretty exciting opportunity for us because we were actually able to engage with at least hundreds of attendees that were there. And our presence was helpful in that we were not only sharing information about the various available career opportunities that we have here at our program and in DCA, but it was also a really good venue for us to be able to share some information with people about what BCE does and our regulation of the chiropractic profession. We also got a lot of good feedback from attendees on, they love their chiropractors and they were excited to tell us about it. So it was a good event for us to participate in. Also on my administration update, we've got, so upcoming, we have a February 21st deadline for bills to be introduced in the legislature. So we're closely monitoring for any bills that are going to impact BCE and our other DCA programs and health professions. We are monitoring some potential legislation related to animal chiropractic that's going to be discussed a little bit further today under agenda item 13. And we're also, as of right now, not a lot of bills have been yet introduced. We are tracking a spot bill that's going to be related to patient access to health records, and then also some legislation related to the use of artificial intelligence in the healthcare professions. So we'll share some updates on those with our Government Public Affairs Committee and get those routed through the board come at the April meeting. The meeting materials contain updates on the status of our various regulatory proposals. We've got 2 packages in our initial filing phase, 8 packages that are being developed in production, and then we've got 10 more behind that in concept development phase. Of those 10 concepts, we are expecting about 7 to 8 of those to be moving to production by summer, meaning final text being approved by the board in either April or July. So that's gonna, it's really moving a lion's share of that pending work that the board's really been diligent about working on over the past few years and getting it out into public comment and formally into the regulatory process. As it comes to regulations, our top priorities for 2025, of course, the top priority is the continuing education regulations. I believe we have a strategy where we can address a lot of the stakeholder and board member concerns and be able to move a portion of it along while we implement through a two-phase approach. So the idea here would be to move the provision that's on distance learning courses into a single issue regulatory package. That issue itself has a very minimal fiscal impact to all parties involved, and we're not anticipating any adverse public comments to that proposal. So we believe we could expeditiously move that portion of it forward, and then separately put the other changes that the board has approved in a larger package. That's the complex package that's been, subject to all the delays and trying to get that work done. So move the rest of it separately, where it has the more complex fiscal impact. It's very likely to receive a very high number of public comments, and is may or may not require further edits to text in response to those comments after we get into that filing phase. So that's the plan there, is to really split that one up and get that moving along. We've also got the other high priorities for 2025 are a few other very substantial packages. One is the chiropractic college regulations that have been developed through the licensing committee. And then the other is the pretty robust changes to our disciplinary guidelines that have been developed through the enforcement committee. I also wanted to just briefly take a moment today to really thank and acknowledge our licensing and continuing education staff for all of their efforts and their openness to improving some of our workflows as we transition to a paperless environment. Our next step with that team now is looking a little bit further in how we can develop some more detailed metrics for our processing of our continuing education course applications. We tend to report out a lot when it comes to our applications and our licensing, and then also, of course, the enforcement actions we're taking, but we want to spend a little bit of time to develop some detailed metrics that we could share with CE providers as far as what our real-time processing of those course applications looks like. Also want to take a moment to acknowledge the work of our enforcement program. Our analysts have been performing desk investigations now for a while, and they're really drafting some detailed investigation reports and doing a lot more complex work than they kind of historically had been. They've really risen to the occasion, and they've been doing an excellent job. Our special investigation unit has also been particularly impressive with investigating some very challenging cases and also collaborating with a lot of local law enforcement. Their hard work has really enabled us to be able to successfully pursue interim suspension orders and temporary practice restrictions against respondents while their disciplinary cases are pending. And we expect to see, or I expect to see, quite the increased use of that important consumer protection tool kind of going forward. So with them conducting very thorough and timely investigations, it allows us the opportunity to petition to either suspend a license or at least get a temporary restriction in place, such as a chaperone or third party present while the disciplinary case is pending. So board members, you will likely see a lot more of your disciplinary cases and mail votes coming forward with some of those interim suspensions in place. That concludes my update as far as the internal workings of BCE. Before I proceed with the budget, are there any questions from the board that I can answer?
I don't have any questions.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Cruz.
You go for it. Go for it, Dr. Daniel.
Yeah, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for the thorough update. And I was happy to see kind of the social media and the outreach and all of that moving along, because I know that was part of our sunset. We've been so busy on all the regulatory stuff, which has been a big lift. So it's that was nice to see. And so I appreciate kind of all the work that's happening. And like I said earlier, I feel like we're kind of finally cleaning stuff up and able to kind of catch our breath and move those things forward. So thank you.
And ditto one for me in terms of social media. I noticed it pop up, I want to say a couple weeks ago. And then after that one popped up, a ton started popping up on my feed. So definitely a lot of kind of posts happening, kind of a combination of appointment announcements, as well as just kind of outreach regarding the wildfires. A question I do have regarding kind of the governor's the topic. It was addressed earlier today, but it was mentioned where, I mean, I'm circling back to a prior agenda item, but you brought it up as well. But this is where anyone affected by the wildfires, if they're part of a specific zip code, then certain, options are available to them, correct? And this is me kind of getting into, oh no, what if someone falls through the cracks? This might just be more for the team itself, but have we established whether or not that particular zip code is kind of the physical business on file or the specific address they have on file? I just imagine someone living on the border of like the county or the city and it being a completely different zip code. So I just wanted to make sure that's addressed.
Sure. So our Office of Information Services pulled addresses of record for any DC license, any satellite certificate, and any corporation located in one of those zip codes. Those zip codes came directly from the governor's office. So we're using those, and then we're also encouraging anybody else that's been impacted or believes this may apply to them to reach out to us as well. And then just to make clear, because some of this, some of these executive orders kind of start to bring a little bit of deja vu to some of the COVID kind of actions that were taken at that time. It's a little bit different in the approach for these in that it's just an extension of the deadline to pay the fee. It's not a waiver. So what it's doing is offering assistance in that the fee is going to be deferred for 1 year, but not waived. So that's why we're encouraging licensees to reach out to us and talk through some options, because we have some licensees that have reached out and they're still going to just go ahead and pay their fee, so they don't have to worry about it next year. But then there's other licensees that are taking it, using this benefit. So largely just we want to give them individualized care, so we want them to reach out to us directly so we can see how we can help them in their specific circumstances.
I'm not sure if this is kind of social media worthy, but I just imagine folks where, right, my PO box that I have on file for something may not necessarily be the same zip code as my place of business. So just something I think about. Thank you.
You may continue, Ms. Walker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also in the meeting materials, we've got our budget and fund condition. This is updated just after the governor's 25-26 budget release. Looking at that document there, there's not too much of high importance for me to note. A lot of it has been the same as just the updates that I've been providing to the board as far as our fund condition. We significantly been underspending our budget. We're very prudent with the funds, and then we're also realizing some significant cost savings at the moment due to some of our staff vacancies, but then also underspending in the Attorney General's budget. When you're looking at the document into the out years, you can see that the board's fund condition, so as it remains current, is very healthy. We're right around 6 months in reserve, but as you start to look into the out years, it starts to go into the negative. Those figures are based on two things. It assumes a full, that we're spending our full budget allotment, and then also they factored in some expenditure growth in there as well. We do historically underspend our budget when it comes to our Attorney General's office line items. So when you're looking at those figures, you can roughly estimate that, what it would look like fully staffed, but operationally sound. We would be hitting those numbers they're about $400,000 to $500,000 higher than what we would actually be spending. So a little bit more savings there than what's represented in the report, but we do still see the trend of a decline over time. The other item I wanted to note was we still have the outstanding bar loan from the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Our outstanding balance there is just a little bit under $1.5 million. We had made plans to make a repayment during the last fiscal year, but we missed one of the procedures that we would have had to follow for the funds to actually come out of our account. So I've been in contact with the board, with the DCA budget office, and what our plan is to this spring in April or May take a look at our existing fund condition, and then in addition to making the $250,000 payment that we're going to make for this fiscal year, we may consider increasing that amount to, say, maybe $500,000 or up to $750,000, just depending on the overall condition of our fund. But as it remains now, we're relatively stable. We have enough in our fund to sustain us easily through our next, up until our next sunset review. And then we're going to be working on a further analysis of our fees and our funding sources so that we have some recommendations to share when it comes to our sunset review report for next year. Any questions on the budget?
Question, something just catching my eye, that the supplemental pension payments, normally those dollars go up whenever I think of pensions. They don't normally go down. I'm just wondering if there's something specifically that's different.
I believe it's tied to specific requirements that are put out for when we have to fund it, and then there's usually a deadline, or there's a time when it reduces over time. So it's fair to potentially assume that those could go back up. But I can get you a more concrete answer and send that over.
Just in general in life, I normally see, so pension contributions normally end up going up on the employer side, not necessarily down. So thank you.
Sure. And then finally, my update today, we've got in the meeting materials an update on our strategic plan, the various goals and objectives from that plan. We've updated the tracker to reflect the board's amended plan that was adopted at the October board meeting. So there's been some kind of slight adjustments to some of those strategic plan objectives, but it's a report there where we're at with the status on a lot of these items. We've got, looking through the plan, we do have a number of items that are kind of on hold or pending for staff, certain staff to be hired, like for example, a committee liaison, and until that occurs, we can't move that to complete. So we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at the actual action plan and the steps within that plan, and probably have a discussion with our Government Public Affairs Committee of, potentially, we've got our success measure there, maybe reworking some of those steps so that we can better reflect, what we're trying to do and how we're going to get there. So, but as it stands, we've got our updates there in the meeting materials, and I can answer any questions on those as well.
Actually, Ms. Walker, I didn't have a question on this, but I forgot to ask. Do we have I really appreciate you reaching out on the distance learning, separating that package. Do we have a time frame of an answer on that?
I don't have one today. I will follow up with the board members next week on that. It's rather kind of new idea and strategy. So let me get a concrete time frame, and I'll disperse that to the board members next week.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion or comments for Ms. Walker's report?
I have a comment question. So one thing that I'm still hearing is from our stakeholders in continuing education regarding the fees. And I know we had discussed some mitigation there, but I'm wondering if at some point we're looking at either reforecasting those or looking at our costs again, and if that's been kind of considered into the future budget.
That's an excellent question. That's one of the items that is going to be included in our fiscal analysis as we're looking for a sunset review. So we are going to be looking at those fees and kind of the funding model as it relates to continuing education. And I think that's also a good topic for a pretty robust discussion at a continuing education committee of the different funding options. There's other programs within the department where you pay more money up front to be a provider, but you pay a very minimal course approval amount. So there's different models that we can look at. Right now we have a relatively low renewal fee to be a provider, but a very hefty fee for the review and approval of an application. So we can develop some different recommendations for the board to consider. ahead of that sunset review report of how we fund the future of our continuing education program.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one more quick thing. If I missed it, let me know. But I'm wondering also, it looks like we're due to have a strategic planning meeting again at some point in the near future. I'm wondering if we've looked at possible dates for that, and I just want to express my preference that we attempt to do that as if we can. It seemed to work best as a face-to-face meeting event. So.
Definitely. So the board's strategic plan is generally adopted the fall after the sunset review hearing. So we're looking at developing and adopting the plan in the next plan in fall of 2026. So your 2027 and forward plan. Those activities though, and the inputs that go into strategic planning is about a 9-month process. So we'd be looking at about early 2026 when we're distributing of the stakeholder survey, doing the board member interviews, and gathering the environmental scan that forms the basis for that proposal. And then you'd potentially be looking at summer of 2026 to develop the plan with an adoption in the fall. So we're about a year out from getting that started.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
I actually have a follow-up question to that. For the environmental scan, because I remember kind of jumping into all of this, I want to say like a month into getting appointed to the board. And so for things like the environmental scan, does the board, one, do we contract that out? And two, does the board have the ability to engage on kind of the type of questions being asked in that scan?
So our strategic plan is developed through DCA's Solid Planning Solutions. They do have, they're very willing to work with programs and customize to specific needs or requests. So I think we could probably look at our, when we're looking at our planning and our time frame, maybe start looking at late 2025 to engage with our, we could start at the Government Public Affairs Committee and start looking at that process, and maybe having that committee also meet with Solid and staff so we can kind of get more board member input into that survey that's going to be released.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any last minute or pressing questions for Ms. Walker? Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker, for that report. Just a brief comment from my perspective. In reviewing this agenda item, you and your staff have done a phenomenal job and had a lot of heavy lifting, and we are so appreciative of all that you do. We know that you're a little understaffed up there and that you're bearing a lot of this on your shoulders, but we do commend you and for your staff for doing this heavy lifting. We've got a lot done. I know we've got a lot yet to do, and we appreciate your commitment to helping us move these items forward. So thank you. With that, moderator, if we can open it for public comment on agenda item number 10. Thank you.
We are open for public comment on all of agenda item 10. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So we'll now turn the time back over to Ms. Walker for agenda item number 11.
Sure, thank you. And this agenda item is going to be rather short and to the point. If I could request that the moderator just display our text for, it's the attachment for agenda item 11. So this item is really just an extension of my my EO report, more so than an action item. in that there's not a lot for discussion here. It's just, so we've got, at the October 2023 board meeting, the board had approved some proposed regulatory text that would make a number of conforming changes to our citation regulations to ensure that they meet all of the required provisions from the statute. And then also clarify and simplify the appeal process for citations by aligning the deadline for requesting an informal conference with the executive officer with the same deadline that they have for requesting a formal hearing. There used to be 2 different deadlines with different starting dates, which causes confusion and just difficulty for people trying to navigate the appeal process. While we were preparing our rulemaking package for the proposal, staff and our regulatory counsel, we determined that there's some very minor but yet substantive edits that we need to make to that regulatory text before we can initiate the rulemaking process and submit to the Office of Administrative Law. We've got the text appearing on the screen here for the users, but it's very straightforward. Within section 390.4 subdivision A, staff replaced or is proposing to replace the term licensee with cited person. Actually, excuse me, I have to cough. With cited person, because anyone can request a hearing, not just a licensee. And then, excuse me, if we can go to page 2, we're doing the opposite. So we're proposing to replace the term cited person with licensee because the board can only take the action that's contemplated in this section against a licensee, not any cited person. So with that, we're just requesting that the board, as an order of business, make a motion to basically rescind the prior approval of the regulatory text and then approve this newly proposed regulatory text so that we can proceed forward with the rulemaking process. Due to my voice, we've got a suggested motion there in the meeting materials if any of the board members would be so kind to make it.
I will entertain a motion that is outlined in the second page of this agenda item.
I would like to make a motion. Motion to rescind the prior text and approve the proposed text to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 390.4 and 390.5, and authorize the executive officer to initiate the rulemaking process.
I'll second that motion. Azzolino here.
Any additional discussion or comments?
This is Sabina. Real quick, sorry, my voice is going too. Are you looking at the action requested on the first page of the memo, Dr. Paris, for the motion?
I believe it's the suggested motion that's on the second page of the agenda item.
Yeah, so we would need that entire motion read.
Yeah, I was looking at I shortened it up. Let me can I restate my motion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to rescind the prior approval of the proposed regulatory text from October 19, 2023. Approve the newly proposed regulatory text to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 390.4 and 390.5 presented in the meeting materials. Direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process. Authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the rulemaking package. Notice the proposed text for a 45-day comment period, and if no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, adopt the proposed regulatory change.
Can I get a second, please?
I will second that motion. This is Azzolino.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment before we go to public comment? Hearing none, moderator, will you open up agenda item 11 for public comment? Thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 11 and the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you. And Ms. Cruz, will you call the roll for the motion on the table? Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, we are on agenda item 12. It is suggested that I take a short bio break. Is 10 minutes acceptable? Do I hear any lobbying for any other time? So we'll go with 10 minutes. If we could, moderator, set a timer for us to return back. I have 10:51, so that we'll return back at 11:01. And we'll pick it up with agenda item 12. Thank you. Welcome back. Okay, do we have everybody? So if Miss Cruz, would you take a quick roll to make sure we're all here and we've got a quorum seated?
All right, sounds good. All right, Dr. Adams,
Present.
Dr. Daniels,
Present.
Ms. Cruz, present. Dr. Azzolino,
Present.
Dr. Paris,
Present.
Mr. Sweet.
Present.
All right, we have a
Thank
quorum.
you. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Appreciate that. All right, we will move to agenda item number 12. And we will allow Ms. Cruz to introduce this agenda item.
Well, thank you then. I guess, I did not realize. All right.
My apologies, I meant to say Miss Walker. I was looking at the wrong agenda.
I could do
my
it
apologies.
if you really want me to.
Miss
was like-
Walker, I apologize. Miss Cruz.
You
I
can
was-
say mission ready.
Thank you. I was ready to jump in and correct, but then Ms. Cruz was about to take it away and I was gonna let her have it. So, so this agenda item is rather brief. So each year the board needs to select a delegate and an alternate delegate to serve as the board's representatives to the Federation of Chiropractic Licensing Boards, the FCLB, as well as the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, the NBCE. Traditionally, the board's chair and vice chair serve those roles, but we do need a motion on the record so that we can file that information with the FCLB and NBCE offices ahead of the annual meeting that's coming up this spring. So with that, staff's just seeking a motion from the board to select a delegate and an alternate delegate for both the FCLB and the NBCE.
And it's my understanding from our past conversations that that Miss Daniels, Dr. Daniels is willing to do that. And then Dr. Paris will already be in attendance with his responsibilities for FCLB as well. So I will make a motion that Dr. Daniels be our delegate for this upcoming FCLB and NBC meetings in May.
I'll second that motion, Azzolino.
Any additional comments or questions of? Hearing none, moderator, can you open this up for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 12. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. And Ms. Cruz, you're up this time. Will you take the roll for us?
Yes, I can. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
All right, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Daniels, for your willingness to represent the board at the upcoming meeting. Thank you. All right, agenda item 13. I will
Dr.
again.
Adams?
Sorry.
Can I just a point of clarification? Are we also, do we also need to elect an alternate delegate here?
My assumption was, since you were already going to be there, that you, but I guess you can't wear two hats. So I will refer to Ms. Walker if we need to clarify that.
Yes, if we could ask the board to select an alternate delegate or elect one here today so that we can file that information with FCLB and NBCE. That alternate delegate will not be able to travel to the meeting because we will already have Dr. Daniels and then Dr. Paris at the meeting in his capacity as the FCLB director. So it would just be the alternate so we can have that filing made. So yeah, if we could entertain one more motion to select an alternate.
I apologize for not that. Would anyone like to volunteer to be the alternate delegate for the FCLB meeting April 30th through the 4th, I believe, of May 2024?
I'm wondering if it would be helpful to maybe have Ms. Cruz or Mr. Sweet, one of our public members, be an alternate delegate.
I think that's a great suggestion. Would either one of you be willing to fill that position?
Sounds like there isn't a whole lot.
Jump right in.
Yeah, required of the
What was that,
alternate.
Mr. Sweet?
Go ahead, Ms. Cruz.
I know I said don't jump right in too fast there, Mr. Sweet. You were saying, pardon, I apologize. I talked over you.
Ladies first.
Oh, you're so kind. If that's the case, you can put me down as alternate. That's fine.
Okay. Then I will motion that Dr. Daniel serve as our delegate and Ms. Cruz serve as our alternate delegate for the FCLB meeting and the NBC examiners meeting in April 30th through May 4th, 2024.
2025, and I second.
2025, sorry, thank you.
I second.
Okay. And I would, just for discussion, I think when we nominate these people as delegate and alternate delegate, I think the intention is that it is for the year, representing our board, and also just to note that there are other opportunities of engagement, including a FCLB district meeting, which and that would be in September. And so that just everyone's aware that we would desire to have the delegate, and if not the delegate, then at least the alternate delegate attend also the district meeting in September, the regional meeting. And then I believe there's an opportunity with NBCE also. Ms. Walker, do you have that in front of you?
Are you referring to the test development committee for the NBCE?
Yes.
I can pull it up very quickly. It would be that test development committee would be June 6th through 7th, 2025 in Greeley, Colorado.
Okay, well, in light of that, I may have, because I know that Ms. Walker, you and I had a conversation before about the chair and the vice chair attending meetings. If we're locking in our delegate and alternate delegate for the year, then I would respectfully want to change that motion to have myself and as the chair and Vice Chair Daniels in those positions. And then since I can't attend in May, then she would act as the alternate delegate. Is that what we're suggesting if we have to lock that in for a year?
That's traditionally how we do it is we would select our delegate and our alternate delegate for the year, and then we would file that information with FCLB and NBCE, and then we would just every January meeting do this again where we do the selection and we file that information with both offices.
Okay.
And I believe with the MBCE, that we have the opportunity to send just a board member, not necessarily has to be the delegate or the alternate delegate, but with FCLB, I believe you're seated in the meeting as the delegate or the alternate delegate. Traditionally in the past, we've not had the same person serve, and that can be done. That's not limited in any way. But part of the reason was that then if it's the same delegate for potentially for MBCE and FCLB, then you have to look at a calendar that would potentially have you going in June, have you going in April to May for the first meeting for FCLB, and then potentially also in September. So just kind of making sure everyone, that we're all on the same page with what that calendar might look like. And so that's why in the past we've done chair and the vice chair have typically just one was the delegate, the other was alternate delegate, and then for the other, one was the delegate and one was the alternate delegate. That way they weren't, and I say it in quotes, obligated to, all of those meetings necessarily.
And if I can commit to the May and September, not sure I can commit to the June if that affects things. So that's kind of what my calendar looks like.
Yeah. And I can commit to the June or the September. So what the suggestion, it seems to me the suggestion should be that perhaps we do the chair and the vice chair as we've done traditionally as the delegate and alternate delegate. That way we cover those positions and then we can just discern and figure that out as we get to that point.
Well, I think from what was just suggested as potential dates that you all could attend, it might, just as a suggestion, Dr. Daniels as the FCLB delegate, Dr. Adams, you as the alternate for the
Correct.
FCLB because she can do both of those, and then you as the delegate for MBCE and Dr. Daniels as the alternate delegate. And also with MBCE, in the test development, seemingly the most cross benefit for them and for us is to have a licensee fill that role for MBCE. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Now, do we have to do two separate motions for different meetings, or just have the delegate and alternate delegate set?
Traditionally, we've done the delegate and alternate delegate, and just, yeah.
So I will revise my motion. The motion is to have Dr. Daniels act as the delegate and myself as the alternate delegate for the FCLB and National Board of Chiropractic Examiners calendar year of 2025.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. All right, did we get that right?
I think so. I'm just wondering if, can we include, Sabina, can we include MBCE in that too and make it all one motion?
Will they be the same people?
Different positions, but just stating the positions for recommended positions for or nominated position for FCLB, and then also the MBCE, and do it all in one motion, or does it require two separate motions?
As long as it's the same people and you designate that you're doing both of the organizations, that should be okay. It does sound confusing, and I've tried to follow along, and I'm glad that we have some historical knowledge in there too, institutional, going back some years, having done it before. So I thank you for that, Dr. Paris.
Dr. Adams, would you accept a friendly amendment to include the MBCE positions for delegate and alternate delegate in your motion?
I thought I included MBCE in there, but the amendment is welcomed.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I only heard FCLB, not the MBCE, because they're different positions. So I just
Right.
was
Yeah,
making sure we
I
stated
included
that.
both, I believe.
Maybe restate it and then.
Yeah, I can reiterate. So my motion is that Dr. Daniels acts as the delegate, and myself, Dr. Lawrence Adams, as the alternate delegate for the FCLB and National Board of Chiropractic Examiners meetings pending for the year 2025.
So just to clarify, what I was suggesting was that you reverse those roles for MBCE. So in other words, you would be the delegate to MBCE because that's the meeting that you in June that you stated you could make it to, and that Dr. Daniels would be the alternate. So just to, if we want to restate the motion, but that would clarify who's in what role for FCLB and who's in what role for MBCE.
Okay.
It would be flipped, basically.
Okay, so the motion is for Dr. Daniels to serve as the delegate for FCLB and Dr. Adams to serve as the alternate delegate for FCLB. And for NBCE, Dr. Adams will be the delegate and Dr. Daniels will be the alternate delegate.
Second, thank you.
Any additional comments? Moderator, if we can open it for public comment. Thank you.
We are open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes. Okay. I think we got it covered. So let's call the roll, Ms. Cruz. Thank you.
All right. I'll start with Dr. Adams.
Yes.
Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes, sorry. Dr. Azzolino?
Yes.
Dr. Paris?
Yes.
And Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 13. Again, we will allow Ms. Walker to bring us up to date on agenda item 13 and as it relates to the practice of chiropractic with animals in the state of California. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And just a brief, little bit of brief background information on this proposal before I turn it over to the board for a policy discussion on it. So we had some members that were of the chiropractic profession that were interested in the regulation of animal chiropractic that had approached the board advocating for direct access to animal chiropractic and the regulation of those practitioners by this board. That stakeholder group had initially requested that the board consider implementing regulations to allow the practice of animal chiropractic by certified doctors of chiropractic. However, the practice of veterinary medicine is regulated by the Veterinary Medical Board, not this board. So our response to them was that without any explicit statutory authority, it's unlikely the board would be able to adopt regulations as they had requested, and suggested that they consider pursuing legislation to address that issue. They did just that and engaged quite a bit with Senator Ochoa Bogue's office on the issue. And then in turn, that office had reached out to us. We've engaged a bit with the Veterinary Medical Board on the issue and participated in a few different discussions. We now have before us here, Senator Ochoa Bogue's office has informed us that she's planning to introduce a bill during this upcoming session for direct access to animal chiropractic for certified animal chiropractors who've been registered with the board. That draft proposal is contained as an attachment to the meeting materials. It has not yet been formally introduced. I did just double check. It's not introduced just yet, but what staff's really requesting that the board do is engage in a policy discussion on that proposal, so that we can get some feedback and direction on just kind of where the board's at with that issue, and if there's any other specific items that you'd like staff to look into further, or just kind of let's kind of kickstart that discussion now that we do have a proposal. The board discussed this issue last at the October meeting at a much more conceptual level, because we didn't officially have any text that we could go off of for the discussion. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the board to evaluate and discuss that proposal within the meeting materials.
Thank you for that update. Any questions or comments of Ms. Walker regarding agenda item 13?
Ms. Walker, just to clarify, is it correct that the board's being asked simply to discuss whether BCE is capable of executing any regulatory enforcement issues if legislation was to pass this? Not necessarily on, because the board is neutral on this. This is an issue for the state association. Is that correct?
Correct. At this point, there's no legislation that's been introduced. We're not asking the board to take a formal position on the bill itself or any of the elements, but just to engage in really a policy discussion of where the board's at with the issue. When it comes to these types of issues where it's talking about scope and what chiropractors can or can't do within the profession, it's certainly appropriate for the board to discuss, the issue and the practice, and as well as, whether it's something that should be regulated. I would suggest to the board that, ultimately the answer of, if it's going to be regulated by which entity is a more appropriate decision for the legislature to make than for this board to kind of weigh in and take a position at that level. But certainly a level of kind of a policy discussion around animal chiropractic. There's within the text itself, the idea that, someone that's taken the 210-hour certification program to be able to practice and provide direct access, the board can certainly engage in a policy discussion on those issues.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Paris, go ahead.
Well, I would ask a point of, just to be clear, my understanding is, so this would create a two-tiered ability for chiropractors to treat animals. One would leave in place the existing language under the VMB, and the other would be those certified would fall under the BCE and also have direct access and everything else that's in our materials.
That is correct. What that text would do would be to would have that two-tiered approach that you've just described, and it would task the Board of Chiropractic Examiners with registering and overseeing the certified animal chiropractors that have that registration through the board. So it would require the board to basically establish a new, not going to call it a license type, but it's most appropriate as a registration, similar to how we tack on a satellite certificate to a DC license. You would have to create a license type similar to that and implement it through regulations in collaboration with the veterinary medical board.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions?
I'm also, I guess, mainly a comment for consideration. We received in our packet, we received a letter, public comment letter from the IANN, and it was regarding board certifications and kind of some of the qualifications to be and I'm going to just quote the quality of certification from certain bodies, and it seemed that 300 hours seems to be the metric that most of our board certifications are meeting in the profession for our current licensees, if not from an independent certifying body. And so it had me raising the question in my own mind that if we might be better served to consider what those minimum levels are, and in consideration of even the certification body, in this case the AVCA, it seemed like the language that we're considering or that was presented to us would have us defer to an entity to do the certification without us necessarily specifying the number of hours and the requirements in those programs. And so I'm wondering if there is some discussion around that.
I would just caution us as a board, as this is pending legislation, has not been introduced yet, that perhaps we might suspend any more detailed conversation or comments surrounding what we might or might not do to when the legislation is introduced, as I don't know that we have the final form or text of what that's going to be. So I think we might just keep in mind that this is still something down the road that we might bring up or address as an agenda item at a later time before we get too into comments about that. Just putting that out there for everyone to consider.
It was my understanding that what was submitted to us was the proposed language.
Ms. Walker?
Yeah, just a little bit of point of clarification. I think maybe I could help the board a little bit with what I'm kind of seeking here with having this discussion here today is, we've been engaging a bit with the veterinary medical board, Senator Ochoa Bogue's office on the issue, just because, it's of interest. They've been talking about introducing it. So we've participated in a few stakeholder discussions. We've heard from some of the concerns that the veterinary medical board and even the veterinary profession has about the issue. So what I'm mostly looking for coming out of the meeting today is a little bit of just guidance or direction on kind of where the board's at on the issue itself, so that when they're reaching out and kind of wanting just an idea of course, not a formal position, but just where the board's at on the issue, I have something more substantive that I can report back. From what I'm hearing from the discussion today, there's potentially, some thoughts or just a little bit of evaluating those certification programs. Dr. Paris makes a good point about, because we encountered this with the when we're looking at the chiropractic program regulations that we're developing around, if you're relying too heavily on an outside entity and losing that control and ability to kind of set standards. So I'm hearing a little bit of, it's probably more appropriate that the licensing board is setting the standard more so than fully deferring to an outside entity. Another thing that comes to mind for me when it comes to animal chiropractic is there's the existing regulations that are in effect right now. We've got the working relationship with the veterinary medical board as far as complaints and making referrals over to them when we come across them. But one of the issues that comes up for us quite frequently is around advertising, because since it's, there is no real such thing as animal chiropractic in any of the regulations, the advertising of animal chiropractic comes up quite frequently on the enforcement side for us because we don't have anything in our language. And then of course on the veterinary medical side, they don't have animal chiropractic, they have musculoskeletal manipulation of animals. So not looking for a real detailed discussion on the specifics of the language, but just trying to get an idea of kind of where the board's at with it as it stands and as they've presented to us this proposal. So if I could just get a little bit of feedback there, that'd be helpful for me if, as they kind of continue those discussions. Like I said, a bill has not yet been introduced. It would still have to get on, it'd have to be introduced and be calendared and put on one of the legislative hearings. It's just sometimes those move faster than our board meetings. So, if we are in attendance, it'd just be helpful to kind of know where the board's at on the issue, so we can adequately represent the board, during any of those hearings.
Well, Kristen, this is Sergio Azzolino. I welcome this legislation. I think there's great benefit that can be bestowed upon animals with competent chiropractors, and I do have a lot of experience with specialty boards, having run a couple, and so I do think it is okay to defer to an outside agency if we know the standard of those agencies. And I know that's premature right now. Should this pass, I would welcome the BCE being more involved in curating what those standards would be that we would have to hold chiropractors to. I think across the board, I think it would be great for this board to start to adopt greater recognition of specialties on all front and making sure that people that are advertising are doing their due diligence to becoming competent in those areas. So I think once again, it may be premature at this moment here. We'll see what happens with the regulation, but I would welcome working closely with the veterinary board to figure out how we could best certify people.
I would just like to clarify, it's my understanding, and maybe an attendee on the call can verify this for us. It's my understanding this is the final language that we have here and that it has been submitted and they're awaiting a bill number. Just so we're aware that we have the language that's awaiting a bill number.
Paris, you're correct. We have the language that came directly from the author's office with an indication that they are planning to introduce the bill and are awaiting a bill number. We, as legislation currently is, the introduced product and what ends up at committee and what ends up, at other committee when it passes to the other house or, frequently changes. But as of right now, that language in the meeting materials, it's not a draft. That is the intended product from Senator Ochoa Bogue's office.
Thank you.
And so, Ms. Walker, you could probably confirm or clarify that there's been some additions to the bill language compared to kind of the first draft, as far as adding in, informed consent, proper recognition of who is responsible if something was to go wrong. There's been some changes along those lines that now are, it was based on the Utah, I believe, correct? Language, and now this language is a little bit more clarified in the sense of perhaps aligning more with our regulatory requirements for humans, as far as documentation, keeping records, etc. And then to Dr. Paris's and Dr. Azzolino's point, the 210 hours, there's particular curriculum, but in some of the other diplomates, there's different levels of certification. So there's a 100-hour, and then there's a 300-hour if you're looking at the sports certificate versus the diplomate. So there are different levels in these postgraduate education. This one seems to fall in between those levels. And I think there was some discussion amongst the people associated with this of working towards a 300-hour diplomate program.
And Dr. Daniels, to respond, you are correct. So the initial draft of language that was shared was pretty much a mirror image of the Ohio language when they had first kind of approached and had that discussion. We had asked some kind of points of clarification on that language, and if the intent was to, thinking through, you've got these regulations that would be that we've already got quite robust regulations as it relates to human patients. Is it the author's intent to then have those also extend to those same protections to an animal patient? They did clarify some language ahead of this introductory draft to clarify that intent, that the board's existing regulations would still apply to an animal patient unless the board specifically specified that in a regulation. So a few clarifying changes were made compared to Ohio language to this draft. And then of course it's just a bill to be introduced. So there's room there for some discussions and collaboration with our board and the veterinary medical board for sure, if this is brought forward for a hearing.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember which one it was. It was Ohio. And I think if people aren't familiar, I think this conversation is started because of reports of injuries to animals from untrained professionals with no education as far as with respect to manipulation. And so there's what they call kind of a black market as far as consumers reaching out to people, and there's no recourse, obviously, because they're not licensed individuals. So they were seeking licensure enforcement because people are getting taken advantage of, or there's no recourse for the patient's advocate, which is, say, the owner.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions?
So I have one more discussion comment. I'm personally, generally, I'm very supportive of animal patients having the ability to receive chiropractic care. I do have a question. When we went through our budget earlier in the executive officer's report, and we noted some staffing shortages, and so I'm just wondering if we could hear from Ms. Walker about your sense of our ability to, if just assuming it moves forward in kind of the two-tiered fashion that is presented to us at this stage, the ability of the BCE office and the staff to manage this kind of as an extra lane for us to be certifying and you know.
And to briefly respond to that, I would start with an assumption of fully staffed, because I could say right now with our vacancies, we don't have the capacity to do that. We are working towards getting our full staffing level through this fiscal year. So with timelines on legislation, we go with an assumption of full staffing level. There will be fiscal impacts from this bill on BCE. An initial look on it, I'm not seeing impacts high enough that we would need to also include a budget change proposal to get additional funding and positions to support it, just primarily due to the relatively low number of licensees that possess this certification and would be seeking that registration through our board. However, if this was widely adopted through the profession and we started getting a much higher number, then you're even looking at a higher fiscal impact. But there's definitely a fiscal impact there. But so I'm not going to say it's absorbable within our resources, but I think it's potentially absorbable within our existing staffing level, assuming fully staffed.
And would we make an effort to perhaps do another cost study and align fees with our costs so that can be relatively budget neutral?
We certainly would. That would be something that we'd be seeking. So with this bill, we'd certainly be monitoring closely the progression. It starts at a policy committee, and if it passes out of the policy committee, then it goes into a fiscal committee, and that's where we'd be really engaging and crunching our numbers, because that's the first thing that gets asked of us when legislation is introduced, is what is the fiscal impact on BCE. We haven't yet crunched those numbers, but that's something that we will be working on this spring if this bill is moving to a fiscal committee.
Thank you.
And Ms. Walker, isn't it currently a small number of people currently that would qualify for this?
That's correct. Yeah, we're estimating it's around 50 licensees at currently. So relatively small number of the licensed population. I've yet to inquire with the department's Office of Information Services to get actual costs of standing up a new certification or registration type, because you're going to have some costs there. No matter how many people are going to utilize it, they've still got to build it so that we have that capability. So more to come on costs, but as of now, I'm not seeing that we need more staff, but we would need to spend some money to stand up the program itself.
But is it your feeling that we have like the resources and the infrastructure based on what we currently enforce and regulate?
Yes. When we look at items like this, we at the board office, our general day-to-day business of what we do is licensing and certifying licensees, and then investigating complaints. We've got a rather robust enforcement program as far as receiving complaints and routing those through, whether it's a desk investigation, our special investigations unit, or a sworn investigation through the Division of Investigation. We have all of those pieces already in place. So, taking on an additional workload, it's feasible within that model. The one item that we would that we would have to develop and really stand up would be developing a pool of expert consultants that would be familiar with whatever what becomes or what is the standard of care for animal chiropractic. That'd be the one challenge ahead for BCE as far as integrating it into the model, is what is that standard and how would we enforce it?
Thank you, everyone. Is there any other comments before we go to public comment? Moderator, if you can open up agenda item 13 for public comment, appreciate that.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 13. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. First, we're going to call on Dan Baxter. We're going to give you 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 15-second warning before your time expires. I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Baxter. I'm the executive director of the California Veterinary Medical Association. And while I will not give extended comment, given the fact that we have not seen the language of the proposed bill, I can tell you that the CVMA will strongly oppose any efforts by the chiropractic profession to infringe on veterinary scope of practice. I would also add that for all the discussion today about core curriculum and number of hours and whatnot, the certification that is being proposed here would be on top of a non-existent body of formal knowledge. So it's building a house on top of a foundation that is not only faulty, but in this case doesn't exist. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next, we're going to hear from MP. Hold on just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
I wanted to say thank you again to the board for looking into the animal chiropractic situation and considering careful thought into everything. The AVCA and IVCA are very robust certification bodies that I'm sure would be happy to explain more into the requirements that they look for certification and qualifications for these animal chiropractors. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Beck. Hold on just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
And I just wanted to say thank you to the board for having animal chiropractic on your agenda today, and that your discussion is appreciated.
Thank you.
And those were all of our requests for public comment.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item 14. And this is a review, discussion, and possible action on potential plan to phase out the automated printing and mailing of renewal application forms to each licensee. Ms. Walker?
Thank you. So staff brought this item on the agenda here today. It's actually, it comes out of a brief discussion at the last Continuing Education Committee meeting around the use of the Connect system and potentially, how can we be more efficient and potentially paperless, or at least I always brand it as paper light in our processes here at BCE. There was some discussion there, and some thoughts around, well, it's time to maybe start setting some deadlines for eventually phasing out some of our printed renewal notices. There was some discussion at that committee just very briefly about equating it to similar to how the federal government rolled out the real IDs, where there was plenty of messaging up front with at certain timeframes things were going to be phased out. So what we've done in the meeting materials is provided a little bit of information about just the utilization of the Connect system. We've kind of got a comparison there over the past 3 fiscal years, fiscal year to date, meaning, through the end of January with our different license types. You can see there's a little bit of growth there over time in our online applications. One recent change that we did just make this fall was updating the renewal notices to provide more specific information about using the Connect system and specifying that that's the preferred method for renewing a license. Since we did make that change very relatively short time ago, in December and January, we observed an even higher increase in our online DC renewal rates. It was actually the first time that we've had more licensees that renewed online than through the paper applications. So from there, we really want to just present to the board today a potential transition plan for us to really get paperless by 2030, and doing it in phases. So what we've kind of outlined is basically a two-pronged approach to this problem of what we're kind of observing is, we're spending a lot of money on sending some pretty thick mailing packages with the renewal form that goes out to each licensee, even though we know that over half of them are just using that to then go online, and that extra paper waste is, shredded or discarded. So we have that issue, but then we've also got the issue of what happens when the licensees are submitting those application types to the board through the paper applications. It's pretty time intensive on our staff, processing checks and manually having to key in renewals compared to the use of the Connect system, which is automated. So after the licensee completes a few steps and pays online with a credit card, the rest of the process is automated on the back end, and it doesn't require staff input unless we need to, do some sort of assistance with the system. So we've outlined how we would get there, and our recommendation is to begin by first phasing out the full renewal package with instead a postcard renewal reminder that can be sent out to each licensee. By doing that, annually, you'd be saving about $11,000 on the cost of the printing, but also the postage. And then also another kind of point of sometimes waste is that right now the system's set to send a notification to each DC address, each satellite address, and each corporation. Under our proposal, staff's recommending that we phase that out and send one renewal reminder to the DC address with language on there about how they renew not only the DC license, but their satellite certificates, and then send a separate postcard reminder to each corporation, because those dates don't run concurrently. But with a DC license, all of your satellites have the same expiration date and the same renewal cycle. So it's a bit redundant to, then pepper out, 10 to 15 different, notices to different locations when they can all be completed in one transaction. So in addition to the cost savings, these postcards are more efficient for the vendor to print, so we can deliver them faster to licensees. And then of course they use less paper, so it's much more eco-friendly for the board. So as far as staff recommendation on that, and we just want to entertain a discussion from the board, is potentially looking at a date of July 1 of 2026, so a little less than a year and a half out. Make that transition to stop sending the full renewal notices and instead send the postcard reminder. Staff will always be here to support and assist licensees. So if they do need a printed renewal notice, they can contact the board. We'll put instructions on that form about how they do that, and we will send one to them. They can still continue sending a paper application and a renewal check to the board. We'll process it, but just instead of automatically sending them, really trying to encourage the use of the Connect system. And then by December 31st of 2029, setting another goal of potentially replacing those postcard renewal reminders with automated email notifications to each licensee with an email address on file with the board, and only then mail the postcards to licensees who don't have an email address. So with that, just wanted the board to discuss that proposal.
Thank you. I think it all sounds, it sounds like a great plan to me. And I think in reading over it, would you be interested in us making a motion then on the two items that you put there as kind of a plan, or are you looking more for just our input and kind of support for your plan?
I'd be looking for a motion from the board just to accept that that plan. That way that we've got it more formal and we can build towards it. So looking for just a motion from the board, if it's acceptable, to accept that plan, or we can modify some timeframes. But if it's acceptable to the board, just a formal motion noting as such.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion or further discussion if anybody has some thoughts. or if someone's ready to make a motion to do so.
Yeah, Ms. Walker, I was just, I think it's great because we've been talking about the kind of the postcard thing for a while. Do we need that much time for the transition? 5 years?
Or probably not. I'm setting it so for the postcards themselves. That time frame, we've got about 14 months, just so that way we can kind of capture everybody would get one last paper renewal notice, and that way we can put the correct messaging in it, and then we've got time for kind of a campaign of notifying licensees. And then as far as the loftier goal of getting to the electronic notifications, I set 2030 as a goal, and I just aligned it with not this board's sunset, but the next one. We could always modify that and make it a more aggressive goal, but it was just to make sure we had enough time and branding around that. And it was also with consideration of knowing that we're going into this sunset with the proposal of trying to go paperless as well with our licenses. So trying to align those two timeframes and kind of just make sure we've got enough room there to achieve it within our goal.
Yeah, the first benchmark seemed fine. It just seemed like there was a long time between the first and the second. And then I think you sort of addressed it. It was just concerned about people with disabilities, temporary, permanent, internet, just building in accommodation. And again, I think you mentioned it, but if you could elaborate on making sure that we're addressing all those concerns.
So we certainly would address that. So we would have a campaign around getting the word out to licensees so that they know what their different options are. The other item would be collaborating a bit with the department's Office of Information Services for us to be able to kind of hard code in our system licensees that may have specific needs. So that way they don't need to ask every year. It's like we can capture that need, because they're, if you can get over 99% of the licensees off of these notifications, but somebody specifically has a need and they need them mailed every single year, just making sure we can capture that information and effectively serve them and not make them have to reach out to us every time. So that's the goal there. And I do agree 2030 is a ways out. So more than happy to set a closer goal. Maybe it's at the end of 2027. So you're looking at about a year and a half out for the postcards, and then give it another year and a half to get rid of the postcards and get to email. We do have our regulation package to start mandating that licensees provide their email addresses to the board. That one's actually scheduled for public comment period beginning tomorrow. So it's very likely going to be in effect, early this, or within this year. So we could set a goal of maybe the end of 2027. So call it, paperless by 2028 instead, if the board would prefer.
I mean, I want to make sure you guys have enough time. I just, I don't know the inner workings. So those were my only two comments. Thank you.
Kristen, it seems like if you gave people the opportunity to opt in for the paper, you would probably get rid of half of the paper in a year. I think that's just a good idea to just implement immediately.
Yeah, I'd be supportive of what Dr. Daniels suggested and Dr. Azzolino. I think 2027 and the timing of that regulation to get an email address, it seems like sooner the better. Who knows how we'll be communicating by 2030? The way things are going with AI, I mean, you may be able to just think about renewing it. It just happens.
Dr. Daniels, would you like to make a motion then?
For as it stands, or with 2028?
With your amendment to it, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I'll make a motion to move forward with the phasing out of the automated printing and mailing of renewal application forms to each licensee, with a goal date of 2028 for full implementation.
I'll second that. Any additional comment? Do you feel comfortable with that timeline, Ms. Walker, as the executive officer?
Yes. Yeah, that gives us plenty of time to collaborate with OAS and make it happen.
Fantastic. If we can open it for public comment, moderator, thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 14. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. And Ms. Cruz, will you call the roll for the motion on the table?
Yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
and Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Right, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to agenda item 15, the continuing education report. We've accomplished a lot in the last couple of years and have continued, and we're moving forward. We have quite a comprehensive package that's making its way, and per Miss Walker's comments earlier relative to breaking into two phases, which will expedite the defining of distance learning. That will, I think, greatly help our stakeholders and our licensees in their efforts to get continuing education to our licensees and stakeholders. A couple of items that we have that we discussed at the December 13th committee meeting of last year. Two items specifically is the proposal to mandate the basic life support certification as a condition for licensure in active status. And that's CCR Title 16, Section 371.1. And then the other issue that for discussion today would be the proposal to create a process for granting extensions to annual continuing education requirement to those licensees who have been adversely affected by a natural disaster, state of emergency, medical condition, or other hardship during their license renewal period. And that's CCR Title 16, Section 364.1. So at this time, we'll open some discussion for the board relative to those aspects. And Ms. Walker, please feel free to chime in any way on those items to expedite any discussion.
Dr. Adams, you summarized that quite well. We've got, so of the two proposals that were discussed by the Continuing Education Committee, this basic life support certification, we're doing a bit of a show and tell of the conceptual draft here today, and the intent is to bring final language before the board at the April meeting. So the purpose of calling this one out specifically on the agenda is if the board has any specific comments or kind of concerns with that conceptual proposal, just requesting that they be raised now before we finalize text for April.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working on this text for quite a while. I think we've got it pretty dialed in. Any additional comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, then let's go to public comment for agenda item 15. Moderator, thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 15. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving to agenda item 16. Government and Public Affairs Committee report. Ms. Cruz will give you the time.
Yes, it is officially my turn. All right, so we had one meeting this year, or actually, no, hold on. It wasn't this year. I believe our last meeting was December 16, 2024. I was like, I have to get my dates right. In this particular meeting, a lot of the focus was on what's coming up, and a lot of the sunset review details were covered by Ms. Walker in her report earlier. And really that's going to be honest, a lot of the focus of what are the things we have to get ready and by when. I believe there was discussion around how we can get ahead of a lot of things. And really that's going to be built into the schedule of kind of what's to come. So in terms of what we discussed, it was just the timeline of in the summer, in the summer, we're going to review the documentation. And then it's not really going to be until the beginning of 2026 is when we're actually going to have the sunset review hearing itself. And then have an additional 30 days to provide the responses. So same thing as before. It's just going to be, I want to say, a lot of work on terms of the staff side, and then a lot of work on our side in terms of kind of hurry up and review and give us your comments really kind of towards the end of Q4, early Q1. And anything else around that topic, Ms. Walker? That particular topic?
You summarized it well. We've got in the meeting materials under attachment 2 a proposed action plan for just 2026 sunset review, so that we've got just putting all the pieces together so the board's aware of what's to come with sunset. And then with that draft report, the plan is it's going to be rather quick as far as putting it together. With an initial draft at the July board meeting, and then ideally having the board approve the final product in October. So getting a little much more out in front of our sunset report and just the different requirements and what goes into it than I think what we experienced in 2021. So just wanting to make the board well aware of that, because it's going to be a little bit different experience than what the board saw in 2021, with a lot of that work occurring between, the October through December, right before, it had to be published and things to that effect.
Dr. Daniels, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah. I put it down because I wasn't sure if you were done with this section. So I can wait until you're finished.
Oh, okay. Either way. All right. All right, getting back on to kind of the next topic, kind of the strategic objective 3.3, the create diverse outreach plans to increase awareness of the profession itself. In this one specifically, we were looking at, we just discussed the type of materials and the specific audiences we would want to reach out to. I'm trying to remember, Ms. Walker, in this particular item, I think we had talked about even, this having discussion, there was something around discussion sessions and having, I'm trying to remember it now. I don't recall, it's okay. But in that particular discussion, we just really gave feedback around how best to engage and around that topic. Next one, 3.5, improve the board's website by providing informative language. I know kind of there's been a lot of kind of work in terms of the website itself. I believe there was some more recently, there was some delays in terms of access to, I believe, the developer, and just kind of, and as a result, really, I wouldn't use the term scaling back, but just really level setting and prioritizing what exactly do we need now. And so I believe we're really just prioritizing the updates to making sure the content's up to date, and we're really looking towards making sure that kind of going into 2020, like further into 2025, seeing what else we can get done with the website that had to get pushed off. Ms. Walker, was there anything specific in terms of things that got deprioritized on the site?
Well, so there's a bit of a strategy shift, and it's actually welcomed by staff with the website. So before, the project at hand was for us to not only go through and update all of the content, but then also determine the layout and everything to that effect. To our benefit, DCA's Office of Public Affairs is working on a department-wide project to standardize the websites that the department has, which is definitely welcome for us. I don't know if the board members observed, but we've been kind of increasing using their kind of the DCA resources around branding and just kind of creation of content. So it's definitely welcome to have their assistance there. We do need to focus though on getting some more relevant content up in our different areas, particularly for licensees and consumers on the website. So that's the staff focus. The other just item to add as well is as we're looking at all the different committees, getting through a lot of these conceptual proposals, we discussed at Government and Public Affairs about starting to utilize those committees to assist us in our outreach efforts and developing certain publications and information within their areas of expertise, rather than trying to task it all on the Government and Public Affairs Committee. So a little bit more collaboration at the committee level when it comes to developing relevant materials for the various stakeholder groups.
Any questions, right? Kind of questions for discussion?
Yeah, Ms. Cruz, Ms. Walker sort of touched on it. I thought it was a good idea, and maybe to move it forward as far as reaching out to the different committees for educational content, updates, etc. So that's what caught my eye. I know we talked about that from the very beginning of the Sunset Review, as far as passing along information to the licensees as far as enforcement issues, regulations, and more sort of user-friendly snippets instead of, anyways. So I know the licensing committee is, up for that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other topics? Does this go out for public comment?
Absolutely. This is Sabina. Absolutely. You can ask for public comment on each item.
Just real quick before we do that, moderator, the agenda talks about their potential motion. Was there a potential motion that wanted to be addressed today, or that you're looking for, Ms. Walker or Ms. Before we open it to public comment? We should get that motion in place if there was something that you were wanting to get.
Oh, the action plan. To review and discuss proposed action plan. I don't believe we need a motion for that, Ms. Walker.
We don't need a motion for it. It's the board could go either way on it. We're just sharing that action plan so the board's aware of it, but no need to formally adopt it.
This is Sabina. It's kind of a work in progress as well at this point, and it's kind of a report out from the meeting, and I'm sure it will be changed in the future as well.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Cruz, then?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Moderator, we'll open it up for public comment. Thank you.
All right. We are open for public comment on agenda item 16. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. we'll be on agenda item 17 now. We'll give the time to Mr. Sweet for the Enforcement Committee report.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Adams. Yeah, the Enforcement Committee last met in December 16th, 2024. Had some great discussions. One of the things that was touched upon was the staffing up of the enforcement department. This is leading to a lower backlog in terms of enforcement proceedings. And so I think we were all encouraged by that, or at least I was. And then we had some robust discussions about proposed legislation, which is in the packet. Particularly at the last meeting, we discussed quite a bit regarding the supervision and training requirements for chiropractic assistants. And Dr. Adams and Dr. Parris were very insightful on that discussion. So we do expect, I think, well, there's some proposed language in the packet already. Ms. Walker, are we going to be addressing that today or at a future meeting?
So for the items that are in the packet, that's the conceptual drafts that the committee has brought forward and moved to the board. We are planning to bring final text for a final board approval in April, but it's an opportunity if the board members had any questions on those concepts, we could discuss them here today.
Great. So we have that one, and then we had also significant discussions on record keeping and retention over the past, I'd say over the past year, we've been having those discussions. And so we're encouraged that the staff has made great strides on both of those items. Those are in your packet. So we look forward to having that proposed language in front of the full board in April, unless there's any feedback on those today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sweet and members of the committee. I do have a couple questions regarding the proposed chiropractic assistant regulation. And as much as I see that there's a need for many of the things that are proposed in here, I have some questions regarding stating that someone needs such a level of training for physiotherapy modalities, given how extensive the array array is of many of the modalities that people offer in their office. So is that going to be specifically defined? Because to suggest that you need to complete some education for those that may be doing an exercise, maybe doing a stretch, maybe, doing something that a trainer in a gym might do, or someone that doesn't have any training whatsoever, it could be arduous. So are you planning on defining those physiotherapy modalities that require additional education?
Dr. Adams, Dr. Parris, I'll let you guys chime in here. I know we did discuss what physiotherapy might entail and what all is encompassed under that. I don't know that we had any plans to specifically define it, but I might be forgetting that.
Well, I think it's just worth noting that the language under, let me make sure I got this right, under 312(2)(a), that some of those were in consideration of indirect supervision and not necessarily direct supervision like we typically think of a chiropractic assistant in your office, maybe while they're under direct supervision. So I think part of the conversation revolved around, essentially the licensee may not be in the office at all while they're engaging with the patient. So that was, I don't know if that adds to it or not, but that was the rationale for some of that discussion.
Yeah, I'm questioning specifically the physiotherapy modalities, just because I understand the examination, I understand all the other interfacing that requires a level of education, but I think it can be dangerous just to lump everything that an individual might do as a physiotherapy modality as an adjunct to the adjustment, requiring a certain level of education, or making it that they need a higher level of education if they're working in our office versus if they're working down the street in a PT clinic or in a gym, that's not requiring that level. You understanding what my question is?
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I, I think that's maybe worthy of further discussion and you like delineating the tasks. Is that?
Well, there's so many things that don't require much education, and I think the licensee should bear the burden of making sure the individuals are trained. And I don't see the need of regulating these unlicensed people any more in our offices than is required in other facilities.
Yeah,
I
understood.
think just real quick, in the language, I'm trying to find it as I read it last night, that the onus is on the licensee to make sure that ultimately the licensee bears that responsibility. So the licensee is responsible to make sure whatever modalities they do in their office to make sure that they are competent to do that before they are then given a directed, as it states in the regulations here, that they will be given a directed um, treatment plan that they outline that the unlicensed individual follows, but only upon the licensee determine that they're qualified to do that. And I think that's
I'm
to
sorry, go ahead.
delineate all the things out might be difficult.
Well, the challenge lies is you have defined what is necessary for a chiropractic assistant education wise. And so by defining what is necessary for a chiropractic assistant and then saying you need to be a chiropractic assistant to do any adjunct physiotherapy now defines that everybody that does anything that could be constituted as adjunct physiotherapy needs to be at the level of a educated chiropractic assistant.
We
And
have
your
physiotherapy. Okay.
your concern or your questions about whether every chiropractic assistant needs to be at that level if they're doing things that don't require.
Well, I think you know my concern, Dr. Adams, in that I think we should hold licensees to the highest level of education possible and responsibility, but that burden should fall on them, and we shouldn't be burdensome and have every person that walks through an office that I don't do heat packs or ice packs in my office, but somebody could very easily state that that is a physiotherapy modality and they would have to be at a level of the chiropractic assistant. Certainly there's people doing stretching, there's doing strengthening exercises. You could walk down the street and go into a gym and have somebody with a minimal level of education rendering those services under the supervision of somebody, but they're not having to be quote unquote a PT aide.
Certified assistant.
If we make them a chiropractic assistant now, just by burden of them being in our office, you're going to have to increase the level of education of every single person, and that's going to be cost prohibitive for many practitioners, especially in an open labor market where people are trying to find good employees.
I think it's a good point, and there was, quite a bit of discussion when we were engaging with this that, sometimes there are people that wear multiple hats in an office. Someone might move from the front office to going back to assist on something else, and so we do want to have some clarification on not requiring those people to have 2,000 hours of minimum experience or those sorts of things. So that was part of our discussion. I don't know if it's addressed fully here in this proposed legislation. So maybe there's something that we need to, take back and discuss.
I just think in all other aspects, other specialties from nurse aides to PT aides, with the education comes some level of autonomy and decision making with the patient. And I think it's safest in this regard to not give any of that autonomy or decision making to a unlicensed individual. The licensee should retain that and also should have that responsibility and delegate appropriately to their staff. I've had people in my office that are very well trained. I've had physicians in my office from other countries, and here they're functioning as medical assistants, and they would not fall into any of this criteria. Yet they're surgeons in other countries.
Mr. Sweet, I in agreement. The way the language was written seemed overly prescriptive and burdensome and vague. I appreciate the intent and the clarification, especially putting the chiropractic assistants, the knowledge on the licensee, and clarifying that as similar other professions that a unlicensed person cannot make a diagnosis, et cetera, but that they can assist. And, with someone who has people who have a small practice and you have a front desk person, that assists in the back with an ultrasound, you don't need much education for that. And it's on the licensee to educate their staff. And I think that we can trust the licensees to do that. So I'm in alignment with part of the language as far as clarifying what the responsibility of the licensee is with somebody in their office, but not so much the overly prescriptive and sort of vague language around the physiotherapies, because there are, so many wide variety of therapies that range in any level of education.
Okay, thank you for that feedback, Dr. Daniels and Dr. Azzolino. And Ms. Walker, is some of that feedback, are we able to incorporate that in a future draft of this?
Yes, this discussion's been very helpful for us. I'd say just to as a point of clarification for that draft is the enforcement committee was really trying to work with some prior language that was in one of those old proposals and trying to kind of force it to work. But what I'm hearing a little bit today is around more so the physiotherapy, not the exam, not the obviously they can't perform a chiropractic adjustment, but there may be room there for us to kind of clean up this language and not be so specific when it's talking about what someone can or can't do. And with the physiotherapy, I think we can take another stab at it by not trying so hard to use the old language is kind of my way of describing it. I think that's where we're kind of missing the mark, because we do have like the new, the intent behind it was kind of establishing two different tiers. So you have chiropractic assistants. They have to have a minimum level of training for the ones that are under indirect supervision. Whether or not, if the board wants that, or what that discussion ends up looking like. But then the ones that are under direct supervision, just putting the onus on the licensee that you're ultimately responsible for what they're doing, and you can't allow them to perform, chiropractic adjustment, but they're under your supervision. So I think it's definitely something that we can take another stab at. And I would just my recommendation would be that we stop trying to make the old language work and just kind of try to redraft what it is we do want, and then bring that back to the board. So maybe bring it back to the enforcement committee for more work, but at stop trying to use the old language as much, and we'll try to just give it a fresher draft would be my suggestion on that, and then we can bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. Thank you. Is there any more feedback on the chiropractic assistant proposed legislation?
I think, it does somewhat mirror what some of the issues, questions, concerns may be around the animal chiropractic language, where, we have something with direct supervision, and that authorizes a certain level or, ability to see animals. And then the proposed is to do it, essentially without that direct supervision. And so, we're kind of on that side, we're working to figure out, well, what does that training, need to be, and what type of oversight should there be, if any, or how much training needs to happen there. And so it's kind of reflective of that too, because when I look at this, I see it as two separate things. There's your chiropractic assistance while you're in office, physically present, the direct supervision, and then there's the question of, if you're only there 25% of the time, then 75% of the time you have an assistant working autonomously, independently, and how much can they provide? Can they provide everything but the manipulation outside of the E&M, which I think is clear, needs to be interpreted, and the x-rays need to be interpreted, the diagnostic side. Um, but anyway, yeah, I'm supportive. Sorry, I'm just kind of train of thought there. But I think you're right, Ms. Walker. We need to go back and look at it fresh and take fresh eyes without trying to navigate the old language and somehow make sure that we incorporate that.
Yeah, and these were things that we were, I think, wrestling with in our discussion. And so I thank you, Dr. Daniels and Dr. Azzolino, for that feedback, because I think it does help clarify things for us as well. The other item we discussed was, excuse me, a regulatory proposal regarding record retention and record keeping. And there's some proposed language in our packet as well. I don't know if anybody had any feedback on that. About any feedback on any other item regarding the enforcement committee.
Mr. Sweet, on 318, the patient records and accountable billings, on some of the language was changed, and I wanted more feedback. The way it read to me seemed concerning for loopholes and enforcement. So under D, it says patient's approximate height and weight, and then patient's vital signs as clinically indicated. So there was that section that I wanted more clarification on the specific language that has changed from doing those things to an approximation and when indicated. When indicated can be, to me, very vague and enforcement issues.
Yeah, Ms. Walker, do you have any comment on that part D and E there under section 318A? 3, D and E?
Sure. So starting with D, that old language used to read patient's gender, height, and weight. During the last board meeting when this was it was last January's board meeting when this was last shared with the board, there were concerns around just some sensitivities with regard to reporting out gender and maybe some hesitation from patients in wanting to disclose that information, and also with height and weight. So that issue was returned back to the committee. It was discussed. We took a look at regulations that other states had in place, and we found that a lot of the other states weren't even specifying that you need gender in the records, so that word was just removed entirely. And then there was the issue of height and weight, and instead of the current regulation is a bit the wording is not all that kind. It talks about you need to have the height and the weight unless there's physical characteristics that the person prohibits you from weighing them. Certainly that's not the expectation when we're reviewing enforcement cases. We're not checking to see that somebody put their patient on a scale. So kind of in line with that prior requirement of being a bit more realistic of what the expectation was there, that's how it became just approximate, and it gives the provider a bit of flexibility on how they want to handle that, whether they do a visual estimation of somebody, whether it's their office practice to use a scale, just providing more flexibility on that point. The second one, where we've got patient vital signs as clinically indicated, we borrowed that language from a different state board. Off the top of my head, I can't cite to it, but I can get that information for the board. But again, that was where we were using the term as clinically indicated, because that you're not going to have a one-size-fits-all approach with that, unless it's the standard that there should be certain signs taken at every initial exam for any presenting complaint. Then we can specify them in the text. But the intent there was to be broadly specific, so that on the enforcement side, we already have an expert that would tell us whether something was clinically indicated and should have been requested and wasn't. It's kind of the same thing we're doing with our current regulations. So that's why we used clinically indicated. If there's an absolute standard that, you always take, certain vital signs, we can put that in the text and be more specific, but that's where we came up with that. So I hope that's helpful.
I mean, it makes sense. When I go to approximate height and weight, I know we've had, and my concern is, we've had enforcement issues as far as two different opinions on what a person's weight was. And when we reach a certain weight, it is deemed a particular condition or disease. And that's not something that I think everyone would eyeball the same. So I'm not necessarily saying it shouldn't be written that way, but these are the things that come to my mind. And as far as clinically indicated, my concern is, again, we've had enforcement issues of, what is that definition? One person will say it wasn't indicated, somebody will say it is indicated. And so without having more of a standard of care to refer to, my concern is that we're going to end up in the same problems that we've had before with particular enforcement issues. So, I mean, I would like to hear from the other board members and further kind of discussion on it. I might have missed it. I didn't see a review of systems, but I definitely could have missed that.
Okay, did anyone else want to chime in regarding Dr. Daniels' comments?
This is Azalino here, and I concur with Dr. Daniels. I do believe that we should have at least a problem-focused review of systems. In some cases, we may need a comprehensive one, but at the minimum, we need a problem-focused review of symptoms and basics on a neurologic examination.
Yeah, my suggestion is that we may want to consider that a lot of times in our enforcement cases, this can be a reflection of what was coded and then what was actually documented and done. So there will be some variation in the E&M coding, and depending on what they actually coded, and I know, so that may be one way that we can look at it, is to the AMA and the E&M coding and what is necessitated at various levels of coding is well defined and is out there for us to look back on and look at the kind of what would the minimum level be, and what would be required from that perspective as far as documentation and coding. Of course, we have the ability to make that higher or lower, but that's usually what seems to be part of the enforcement issue is a proper documentation that aligns with the coding. And so I think we might be able to look back, or have the committee look back, and when we say as clinically indicated, maybe we can find a minimum level of review of systems and a minimum level of vital signs and kind of some of those bullet points that we might just more clearly define.
Dr. Paris, I think these minimum levels are well defined across most healthcare specialties, and so I don't believe that we need to adopt something that's unique to chiropractic. I think we should just be in line with what is required of all other nurses, physicians assistants, and whatnot out there.
Well, no, just to be clear, that's what I'm suggesting. If we look at other healthcare professionals, and we look at, especially into the medical side of healthcare, particularly, they firmly align with E&M guidelines and CMS E&M coding guidelines, and then those are reinforced as supported by the AMA, et cetera. And that, yeah, I think we agree on that, and that's what I'm suggesting, that we could we can go back and look at, there's, well-documented, requirements. And I know they do some time with the level of the code, so that may vary, but it would be easy to identify a minimum because this is all under the, 318A, um, the patient file and at an initial visit. So if we look at A3, it's documentation of the initial patient visit, including, and then we have all of our the things we're discussing down below it. And so that's already defined for us. So I think we can go and look at, what those bullet points are, and they're very well defined, as to history, physical exam, medical decision making, et cetera. So I think we agree. I just think I maybe didn't state it correctly.
Ms. Walker, some of that feedback is that, are we able to incorporate some of those suggestions into a future draft?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, this one's a bit more specific and I think built up. So this one I feel pretty comfortable with working on some amendments and bringing it back to the board if the board's comfortable with it. With 312, I'd recommend bringing it back to the committee.
I agree with that. Any other feedback for any enforcement committee items? When we send it out for public comment?
All right, we are open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sweet. Thank you for the comments from the board. I want to take a pulse of everybody in attendance. We were hoping to get through this and not have to take a lunch, and we would finish. But I also need to be sensitive to the staff. Where are we at with that, Ms. Walker? Can we take a short bio break and then come back and finish since we're so close, and then be done for the day with your staff? And how's the board feeling about that?
For staff, I would say that that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay. So is everybody on the board in agreement? Can we do say a 10-minute bio break, come back, and then take this to the end?
That's fine with me.
Works for me.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's take 10 and we'll see y'all back then. Welcome back. Ms. Cruz, are you there?
We are.
Okay, can you call the roll real quick?
All right, let me see. All right. Dr. Adams,
Present.
Dr. Daniels,
Present.
Ms. Cruz, present. Dr. Azzolino,
Present.
Dr. Paris,
Present.
Mr. Sweet.
Present.
All right, we have quorum.
Wonderful. Okay, we're now picking up agenda item 18, and Dr. Daniels will give us our licensing committee report. Dr. Daniels.
Great, thank you. So just kind of two items today. One, I'm not going to review everything. You guys are diligent about reading the materials. The first thing I want to say as far as the draft on sort of updating the requirements of a CCR Title 16 sections 330, et cetera. We've made additional edits to this draft, and we're continuing to make some edits. So I just wanted to start off with that what you see here is kind of a it's more than a conceptual draft, but we've made more edits based on stakeholder feedback as far as further clarification. So I'm happy to take any questions on that, but there are more edits to that. We've definitely, made some progress with this. There's more work to do, but we are trying to, we have 2 more work groups, and I have some meeting with stakeholders for clarification on certain sections that seem to be very relevant. The broad strokes are aligning a lot of it with CCE, but we've been working, Ms. Walker's been working with OAL as we're going through this process to try to avoid having problems with what we can and can't do later on. So she's been working with OAL with a lot of the language that is in here so that we don't have something at the end of the day that OAL says, no, you can't change that or you can't do that. So that's where we are as far as that. The general gist is a lot of the overly prescriptive, burdensome aspects of the regulatory language towards the curriculum can be eliminated and changed. And so that's what we've been working on. And the feedback from the stakeholders is very positive. There's a few things that we cannot change because of the act, but we are doing our best to modify them within the regulation and what we can do to make it amenable for contemporizing the education curriculum and giving the schools the freedom to adapt more readily for the educational needs. So does anybody, so I'll pause there before I go on to the proposed regulatory language for the aligning the renewal and restoration of the DC licenses. Any questions or feedback? It's like, no? Okay. So the next one, the licensing committee wanted to bring this back to the full board. The staff developed the draft language, and the section that we wanted, we want feedback on all of it, but the section we kind of wanted feedback on, they've delineated very clearly the timeframes for restoration and renewal. But the way it currently stands, and Ms. Walker can probably state it more clearly than I, is that, if you want to restore a license after 10 years, there's really no check as far as your clinical skills and your ability to practice. It's really just do a certain number of CE. And so we're trying to align the time frame with enforcement and what we've been seeing in enforcement cases of what we're asking for. And so the licensing committee was more in favor of, at that 4-year point, of restoration or renewal requiring the MBC Part 4. What was originally there was the spec, and the spec is great, but it doesn't consider psychomotor skills and clinical exam and such. And so we sort of feel like a 4-year mark is sort of getting to the kind of boundary of being clinically competent potentially, and that would align with a lot of our enforcement. So Ms. Walker, you can jump in, but kind of for me, that was the highlight as far as spec versus MBC Part 4 at that 4-year mark. Any clarification, Ms. Walker, on?
You summarized it quite well. There's concerns there around the current regulations and how someone with a canceled license can pretty much show up with just a lot of CE and then get their license immediately back. That's not the way it works with the majority of the programs within DCA. The majority of those programs, if you have a canceled license, if you want to get it back, you have to meet all of the standards for initial licensure. With this one, committee and staff kind of developed a proposal that tries to ensure the clinical competency by capping with the 96 hours of CE, but then also on top of it, requiring that you retake the CCLE, the law exam, and then prove your competency by either proving that you've practiced in another state during that time or retake Part 4. So this proposal is very close to completion, but wanted to run those elements by the board to make sure that the board's comfortable with it before we bring final text forth for approval in April.
Any comments?
My comment, are you done with your report? Because if you are, I'll make my comment. If not, I'll reserve until you.
No, those were the two topics. Those are kind of the highlights.
Yeah, I just really want to commend you, Dr. Daniel, specifically, and Jeanette as the licensing committee for the immense heavy lifting and work that you have done in this particular regard. I mean, this was a huge undertaking. I know that there's been a lot of interest from CCE and from stakeholders and from licensees to get clarification on these things. And so this has been monumental. So I just want to commend, you both and then the staff for your support and getting the information here and going through this. I know it's been a huge undertaking. I know that, Dr. Daniels, you've spent a lot of time in meetings and, via Zoom and on the phone and taking meetings and being just so diligent. So my strong support for all that you're doing and for your efforts. Really quite amazing. So thank you for all you're doing, both of you.
I would echo those Dr. Adams' comments and say that for a while now, we've been getting really positive feedback from our external stakeholders in the profession regarding not just the quality of the work and even the language that we've put out to this point, but also just the ability and the gumption to get this moving this way. So thank you, Dr. Daniels. And then on the second part here, I think that was kind of something we identified internally that I think really strengthens our ability to have some assurances of competency when we're getting licenses back, and also provides a sense of fairness and parity to the licensee who's come before us to get their license back. Doing 10 years of CE, and that just made no sense. So I'm glad we've moved to something that I think is more satisfactory for everyone involved.
So if what I'm hearing is everyone seems to be okay or in agreement with the proposed regulatory language for 370, 371 and using MVC Part 4 when we reach that limit of 4 years versus a spec exam. Is that correct? I see heads nodding. Okay.
Yes, I concur. We've long been discussing this, and I think it's nice to see it come to fruition.
Okay. So with that, may I make a motion before public comment as far as to move this regulatory language forward with the appropriate edits if needed by Ms. Walker and the staff?
I will second that.
Okay.
This is Sabina, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was waiting for you.
Sorry. We're talking about only sections 370, 371, correct?
I believe that is, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
I just want to make sure because there's various proposals.
I know,
here, so.
there's a lot of numbers.
I know. Okay, so the motion just concerns CCR Title 16, sections 370 and 371 to pursue as a regulatory proposal and with whatever additional edits the board discusses today.
Correct, so moved.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. If it's okay, Dr. Adams, we'll open it up for public comment.
If there's no other comments from the board, let's do that.
Moderator, could you open this up for public comment, please?
We are open for public comment, and I'm actually unmuted this time. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Actually, Ms. Walker, I have a note on myself. In the language, it talks about when the applicant must disclose any disciplinary action. I was just curious, what is our process for when it's not disclosed, and how we find that out, and then what's the process for that?
There's the National Practitioner Data Bank where we can generally find disciplinary actions that were taken by other states or other DCA licensing boards against an individual. So we get the information that way. Sometimes you just see it, through a Google search. Conviction information, we fingerprint at the point of trying to get your license back. So we get the fingerprint notifications that way. As far as the actions that we take, we proceed with discipline based on the actual action itself, whether it's a conviction or disciplinary action. But then we can also tack on an additional violation for a false statement on a license application. So it's a more severe discipline because on top of having to address the one issue, we now have the falsification issue as well.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Ms. Cruz, do we want to do the vote?
All right. Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Azzolino?
Yes.
Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
All right. Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Daniels, for your report. We will now go to agenda item 19, which is future agenda items. Members of the board and public may submit proposed agenda items for a future board meeting. However, the board may not discuss or take action on any proposed matter except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda at a future meeting. Are there any future agenda items that the board would like to propose?
I would like to see us further the discussion that was brought up earlier about the meaningful education for like board certification and hours and content, and kind of along the perspective of the letter that was submitted to us it's in our packet from the IANM, and what was partially in some of the conversation that we had today with regarding the animal chiropractic, et cetera, and maybe further delineate the board certifications versus just certifications versus just technique certifications, or certain more minor therapies like taping and things like that.
I concur. Also, I think we might include in the conversation Dr. Karen Campion from the specialty board through the FCLB, that getting her input, because that's something that we've been looking at, and I've been on the committee in discussing those aspects as well. So that might be good to get some feedback from them as well and what their level of accreditation thresholds.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We've been doing something that I think's been really useful for us and valuable to our stakeholders and our meetings is having, generally a guest and a presenter at most of our meetings. And, EBOS today, I learned not EBAS. I guess we heard it from EBOS today. And we've had FCLB in the past, and they have a lot of different products that they offer us. And I would just make one more comment if I can back up just 10 seconds from Dr. Daniel's comment. And one of the benefits that we get from being part of a member board with FCLB is access to that SINBAD database, and that gets reported to by the Department of Health and Human Services and OIG, et cetera. So those are really valuable, work products beyond just the participation and the collaboration that we get with those groups. So I just wanted to note that for everyone on the call that that's something that we rely on, and it's a good thing for us. So thank you.
This is Jeanette. One thing I want to make sure we at least cut it down. We had mentioned the environmental scan earlier, and if we can get something in the governance committee within Q3 so that we can bring it something to the board in Q4 so that it's ready for Q1 essentially, that'd be great.
Is that something specifically, Ms. Cruz, that you want on the general board, or is that something you want to be included in your committee and governmental aspects?
Both Q3 for the governmental committee and then our governance committee, and Q4 for the board.
Okay. Any other ideas, or excuse me, any other future agenda items? Ms. Walker, do we need to have anything specific from an agenda standpoint about the phase 1, phase 2 aspects of the comprehensive package for CE? Does that need to be something that's put on for April, or is that something you're handling directly on your own? That's the impression I got. You're handling on your own with the OAL.
Should be able to handle that on my own. If for some reason there's some sort of motion needed, it will be brought forward to the board. And then just to Ms. Cruz's last comment, just to clarify, when we're talking about Q3, are we talking calendar year Q3? So we're looking at the fall. I just want to make sure I have, because we run on the fiscal year. So I just want to make sure I have the correct quarters.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Reset your fiscal year Q1 or Q2.
Yeah.
So
got it. Okay. Noted. Thank you.
Okay. Any other suggestions for future agenda items? Okay, moderator, if we can open this for public comment, thank you.
We are open for public comment on future agenda items. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes. Thank you. So agenda item 20, do we not need do we not need to go into closed session?
Correct. There's no items for discussion today, so you can proceed to adjournment.
Wow. Okay. Well, with that, I will say thank you for a wonderful meeting, for your comments, for all of your input, and thank you for your confidence. I am thankful to the executive officer, Kristen Walker, and her efforts that she's put forward, and her staff, all of you, collectively and to the board meeting today. We want to also extend a welcome to Dr. Azzino once again and for his input. He's no stranger to these meetings, and he's no stranger to the process that we go through. And so we're glad to have him, and he'll hit the ground running, I'm sure, as he already is. With that, is there any parting comments on behalf of from the board before we adjourn?
I just want to congratulate Dr. Adams, Dr. Daniels, and forward to working with everybody. So forward to a very productive tenure.
Again, welcome. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Congrats, Larry.
Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Likewise. Thank you again, Kristen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.